raising you. So now that you're grown, you need to make me happy. And making me happy is doing everything that I say and sort of living your life for me. And a lot of the moms relied heavily on their kids for emotional support, it seems. And a lot of moms, especially, rely very heavily emotionally, like for validation and whatnot, through their sons. Seems like the validation and love and support, like emotional things that they couldn't get from their husband, they're like trying to get from their son. And even after marriage, they can't seem to let that go. And because the sons sort of grew up feeling like they're a burden to their parents and need to pay their parents back, they think that they're sort of obliged to be that emotional support for their mom. Especially when they grew up seeing their fathers prioritize their mom, prioritize grandma over mom. And especially when you couple that with the old Confucian culture, which is basically blood is more important than not blood feud, right? So traditionally, if you are a wife, you are considered to be married into the husband's family. There's dad, mom, there's the son, everyone else in the family, and then you're like sort of the last one in the totem pole. And your job marrying into a Korean family is basically to do whatever mom wants you to do and to be there to take care of the parents. You had like really no ranking like in the family. And so there was a big lack of respect for the wives that came in because Korean society is really based on like hierarchy. Like people know that it's better that everybody's just sort of equal and you're older than me, so I have to use this special language for you and you don't have to respect me because you're old. But that culture is still very much alive. Like a lot of people who are older feel like they sort of outrank the younger people and they don't really need to respect them. So actually even the word daughter-in-law in Korean, 며느리, there is this one psychologist, her name is Lee Joo-eun, and she made a video about like the history of the word 며느리, and she's like, we need to stop saying 며느리, which means daughter-in-law. But apparently, 며느리 means 기생한다, like from the sun. So basically it means that you're like a parasite of the sun. Wow. So even the term in and of itself is like, I hear that person who's like coming and something from our family. So the psychologist who made that video, she's like in her 60s. So she's a part of that sort of previous generation that was born like somewhere right after the Korean War. And she said that in her time, when you got married, you weren't even allowed to do any sort of affection at all. Like in front of the older people is considered disrespectful. Like how dare you show that you love this other woman that's not your mom or dad in front of your mom or dad. So traditionally, you got married so that you could go and be a daughter-in-law to the parents-in-law. So the parents would dictate everything that you do.
Back.
There's no boundaries.
I'm back.
You
I'm
just have
back.
to go in.
And like I said, I wouldn't have done anything until
that they gave to you. And
I
that
get
culture
back.
was still alive even just one generation ago. And
So
so
now
people
we
know
just
that you
start
can't be that way.
now.
You shouldn't be that way now, but it's, you know, things can't really change in one generation, right? It's going to take a couple. And also the previous generation sort of thinks that children are their property, right? Like, you're my property. It doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter what you feel. I don't care, right? Basically, just your life is to do what I tell you to do. And so the younger generation, they know that that's not good, and they actually greatly dislike it. They don't even really like being around their parents just because the generational gap is so big. It's difficult to even really have good, meaningful conversations with the...
How have you been? Thank you. They're super cute, right? So I finally got my results yesterday, and my hemoglobin is amazing. I stand at a whopping 11.3. Oh, I promise you I'm not hungry. I'm full. My belly just growling, embarrassing me. But girl, 11.7. Sorry, 11.7. So I'm just a little bit shy of the full 12. Oh, you still working? That's good. So after I'm done with these, I am going to start, I'll definitely start back working in January. Hang on. I'll definitely start back getting to work in January. And I'll be on YouTube a lot more. Thank you so much, girl. I am so happy. So the first bag is done. We're on bag number 2 now. Getting it all prepped up. Bag number 2. And they're so nice. I love the sizes. love the sizes. They are on the bigger side than what I usually make. I'm so happy, like, I am very happy. I just have to now work on my cholesterol. I need to bring my cholesterol down. And I hope it is working.
According to a lot of people, but they feel a tremendous amount of guilt if they're not doing what their parents want them to do. And if they do go against what their parents want, the parents can sort of make them feel very guilty about it. There's this pressure that they need to be a good son. You have to be a good son. You have to be a good son. It seems like there's more pressure to be a good son than it is to be a good husband a lot of the times, even still to this day. And a lot of moms express betrayal. Like if their son prioritizes their wife, they feel betrayed. My son has changed. He likes this other woman beside his mom. How could he do that? And so as a result, a lot of people really struggle to prioritize their wife and kids over their parents, even to the point of leaving their wife if there's a particular thing that their parents want from them and the wife's like, I don't want it. They're like, okay, well,
Yes,
bye,
I am on cholesterol pills right now. And I'm trying to eat as best as I can, like healthy as I can. But to be honest, eating healthy is so damn expensive. Buying healthy ingredients is very expensive. So I don't know how often I'd be able to do that. I don't know how often I'll be able to do that.
Do whatever my parents wanted. And I have friends who are therapists, and they share that the biggest thing that couples come in for, like for therapy, literally is just in-law stuff. Like, especially nowadays, it's switched to where a lot of the women are like still so enmeshed with their
I
moms,
can't afford it. Like,
part of
eating healthy is like
there's
a
this
treat.
mom on YouTube, his name is Sewn, and I love listening to
It's
him
like
talk.
a treat.
But basically, on his show, Korean people will either call in on video call or like go to one of his things and like ask him a question and he answers it. Something that's still an issue. Even just like 3 weeks ago, somebody called into Pumru's name and they were like, so my dad passed away. My mom is just a widow now. So I had her come live with us. And she lived with us, but then she's so like rude to my wife. So my wife was like, okay, I can't have her in the house anymore. Kick her out. So he kicked out the mom but got her an apartment, and he was telling Pumru Sunnim that he feels bad leaving his mom alone. So he's going to live with his mom and leaving his wife and kids. And he's like, bro, your mom can't be alone because her husband died, but then you're leaving your wife to be alone. And one thing that he brought up in that video was something that they need to do is to really change that sort of mentality, because it really trickles down and impacts everyone in the family, especially the children, negatively. What's even more sad is there are some people who are literally forfeiting marriage altogether. Just a couple weeks ago, I was watching the Ijun YouTube channel, and she said it's so sad she has so many people who will literally say, you know, my mom is really difficult to deal with. I don't even want to see her, like my own mom. So I think I just have to forfeit marriage, because what woman will want to deal with my mom? And the therapist said, that's sad. Obviously, you can't and shouldn't forfeit, you know, your life because you think you need to take care of your mom because she's too difficult. But she said the even more sad thing is that a lot of those moms will say, yeah, that's a good idea. This one is like a more extreme case, but there's still so many of these cases. They have really been guilted into thinking that parents are the priority over everything, even their own happiness, their own wife and kids. So if you are going to get married in Korea and you're here, then it's definitely something that you're going to have to have.
Do you remember my friend from TikTok, A. Ellsbury? Do you remember that name? Angie? Well, Angie has been a supporter since I started my small business. So since March 29th, she's always shopped with me. Like, even though I got sick, like, she's been waiting to like shop to buy a bigger bag. And I want to surprise her for Christmas. So this is her bag that I'm working on. I already finished my mom. You want to see it? Let me show you what my mom bag looked like. So this is my mom's bag. I finished it today. This is her Christmas bag. super cute. And it's bigger than I usually make. I'll add these to my store for next year. So it's bigger. The measurements are 16 inches by 11 and a half. So I'm making 3 bags. I'm doing one for Angie because I want to surprise her. She's actually waiting for me to get better. I haven't told her I'm better yet, that I can work. So I'm just gonna hold out on telling her so I can send her a bag. It's super, super cute. Yeah, she's gonna love it. Angie's been shopping with me, and I'm like, what are you doing with so many bags? Like, why? She just keep buying stuff, like, and I know it's to support me, so to support my business and stuff, so she's gonna love it. And the color I chose is like a vintage color because she's a mature. She's more mature. She's a mature lady, not like she's older than me, of course, but she's on the more mature side. So I know she would like a vintage something. She'll appreciate like a vintage look. And I'm so excited. I'm not gonna tell her at all. I'm not gonna message. It's just gonna show up. Merry Christmas. Christmas is next week, Wednesday. It probably show up after Christmas, but yeah, it's gonna show up after Christmas. But I'm gonna ship it through. I'm not doing USPS. I think I'm gonna take USPS out my shipment for good because they are sloppy, pretty sloppy, too sloppy. Yeah, so she's gonna love it, and I hope I can get. I sure I can get this done by tomorrow. Okay, so we already prepped the strap. Now let's prep the top. Hold on, I got some type of fluff on my eye.
Conversations about and really learn where your partner stands, especially if you're
yeah, she'll get it after Christmas because she's waiting to like shop with me. So
even if you have someone like my husband, Mr. Movies,
yes,
setting boundaries, like my wife doesn't want it.
Mimi watching
like,
TV.
Stop asking. Like he'll just verbalize those things like to them for me. Like my wife said no. Okay. Even someone like him still feels a tremendous amount of guilt for doing so because it feels like I feel like it's wrong of me to set up boundaries with my parents, or it's wrong for me to do this because they've sort of been trained from a young age that there's no boundaries with parents. You just sort of do what they want you to do. So definitely need to have that conversation with their partner and figure out where they stand on the scale of, are you going to set up boundaries with your parents or let them run over our lives?
I think I'm
It's
gonna
something
go
that would be a big struggle for them.
down,
So if you are
just
here, you are
down.
marrying a guy and he's making a decision for your family that's maybe contrary to what the parents want, you really have to encourage him a lot. So let's move back to the hyodo. Remember I mentioned hyodo was a culture of you having to sort of
Let's
pay
go
your
up here
parents
so we
back
can
for
mark
raising
it
you,
like
etc.
on
For a lot
here.
of people, it randomly starts just after marriage. And this is something that was interesting because I sort of experienced something like this too. Even if they've already been moved out of their parents' house and they haven't been doing anything for their parents, the moment they get married, they take their wife and they say, hey, we're going to do this for my parents. And it puts a lot of pressure on the wives who are like, wait a minute now, this whole time we've been dating, we haven't, now all of a sudden we're married, you want us to like focus on your parents. And apparently this is a phenomenon. I've talked to a couple of therapists and psychologists about it and seen a lot of content about it. It's sort of that old culture where the marriage was in support of the parents is still very much alive, and they feel like some sort of guilt about just going and living their marriage. It's like, I gotta do something for my parents. So there's so many cases I've heard of people who are not living with their parents, like guys not living with their parents, and they only go to visit their parents in holidays. They don't see them besides that. But for some reason, when they get married, they're like, you know what? Now that we're married, well, let's go see my parents every, like, twice a month or something like that.
Really?
So a lot of women are blindsided. Not
Oh wow.
but like Korean women.
Oh my goodness,
Too.
it's
Like,
gorgeous.
so
I
we're
love it.
dating. He visits his parents on holidays.
I
He's
love
not,
it.
you know, trying to see them or do anything with them. But suddenly we get married, and now he
Beautiful.
wants me to go meet with them like twice a month and like do all this stuff for them. As a wife, you're the one who sort of carries the pressure of trying to make the parents happy, because in a lot of cases the sons and the parents actually don't have a good relationship. So it's sort of like you become the in-between person, and in a lot of cases the mom-in-law will ask you how he's doing instead of asking him directly, and that puts a lot of pressure on people, especially after you have kids. Like, maybe they don't like their parents and they don't want to see them, but they feel like they need to show their wife and kids to the parents to sort of make them happy. So everything is sort of about what the parents want in their life, and it really makes marriage very difficult. In society, it seems very romanticized. Like, even after marriage, look, everyone's all together and everyone's so happy. Even I did a TV show here. I don't know if you guys remember. And the TV show, they're like, okay, we need to have you with the in-laws.
How was your
Let's
day?
go down to the countryside to even be with the
Nice.
grandparents.
Pink
Look,
and yellow. I
and on the
know
show,
that's
they were
super
like, look, all the
cute.
generations are together. And for some reason, if your group doesn't get along, your families don't get along, then a lot of people feel pressured to like just try and meet up with them anyway. You're the issue. It's not them forcing their own ways or controlling you or doing whatever. You're the issue. You just need to like your parents and do whatever they want. There are even some families where, this is not my family because I'm somebody who has very strong boundaries, and I will say them because I'm sorry, but I cannot be doing some of these things. I think if you are someone who's gonna get married in Korea, you do need to be someone who's very vocal about what you will and will not do, and not someone who is just gonna just do whatever everyone wants, because you can only hold in dislike for so long. Eventually you're probably going to explode on them, right? So you do have to be someone who's willing to sort of speak up about what you will and will not do. There are a lot of families where the mom-in-law requires the daughter-in-law to call every once in a while. In some families, it's like once a week. In some families, I've heard of the worst stories. It's literally like every day the mom-in-law wants a daughter-in-law to call. The psychologists have said it's sort of a way to show that they have power over you. Like, is she calling me? Is she under me still? It's like they're always checking, like, am I above you? Hit the mic. Especially because it only goes towards the daughter-in-laws to the husband's family. It's not the other way around. And so that's something else that can cause a lot of issue, because there's a big focus on the husband's family, and sometimes you're like, okay, well, what about,
okay, I know you told me last time your it's so hard to get an appointment with your doctor.
And getting gifts and where money is going to be exchanged to the in-laws.
So
all the
I'm
therapists
glad
say
you
everything needs to be calculative.
get
Like,
at least a couple to go to.
It's not good to be calculative, but if you buy a gift for the husband parents, you need to buy the same gift of equal value.
You're stuffing as we're speaking?
If you're going to spend X amount of hours on the holiday at this parent's house, then you need to spend the same amount of time at that parent's house, because there's still old people who think that holidays only need to be spent with the husband's parents, even to this day, or they still sort of have this husband's family first mentality, and that puts a lot of strain on the marriage as well, because it's like, okay, if we're gonna always do these things for in-laws, it needs to be equal on both sides, and that culture still hasn't caught up so much. Even so much so that in the Korean language, actually, you call, if you're a daughter-in-law, you call your mother and father-in-law 어머님, 아버님, which means mom and dad. But the husbands don't call their wife's parents mom and dad. There's other words for it, 장인, 장모. So it's like you're required to mom and dad to your husband's family, but your husband's family and your husband call your mom and dad wife, mom, and dad. Like, it's different words.
That's good. He
so
starts a
there
new
can be a lot of
job.
inequality on how much attention is paid toward either side.
I don't know who was the person who came up with working. I need to have a conversation with him or her. Because this sucks having to work
So it's not good on either side. One other thing that could make it really hard is just the notion of monthly allowance. Typically, it was just given to your husband's family. But it's very stressful in marriage because the women are saying, well, if we're giving money to parents, we need to give both sides of parents money. So you have this pressure on a newly wed couple. The cost of housing and stuff is so expensive anyway. And then now they have to give money to either side of the family. That's such a stressful thing. And that's one of the reasons why people feel like they need more money because they have all of these extra pressures. Even if maybe their in-laws have or make more money than them, they still feel obligated to send that money, and it's something that's very stressful. But just the in-law stress in general, one thing that I really saw and learned, like in the marriage books, is it really keeps couples from emotionally connecting the way that they should. Which brings me to the next thing that could make it a bit difficult in marriage, which is just sort of a lack of emotional depth. The older we get, the more for a lot of people to difficult really deeply connect with people your body becomes. Because of the way that they were raised. In the previous generation, people weren't really allowed to express themselves or to speak up or to say anything that made them uncomfortable. The parents would sort of get mad. So people grow up feeling like if I share my emotions, somebody's gonna get mad, right? Or people are not gonna accept it, and then I'm gonna get hurt even more. So people are very, very afraid to be vulnerable and actually share what's on their heart and mind, and they sort of make an attempt to just, gloss over it. I don't have to say anything. I'll just move past it. And for a lot of people, like opening up and complaining about emotional turmoil is seen as sort of something that's a bit weak. Why don't you just be stronger and deal with it for the sake of the relationship? So if you are going to be, even just in a relationship with someone, here in Korea, I've noticed you really have to coax people to like share what's on their mind sometimes. It's one of the things that leads to the explosive anger that a lot of Korean people have because they're so repressed. Because people are taught to not share anything because you're gonna mess up. Even sometimes it's difficult to make friends. Like if you're somebody who's used to having deep conversations, like even Korean people have complained about this with me. Like sometimes if there's certain people you try and open up with and share, they get angry. Like, why are you putting your own stuff on me? Like I got my own stuff I'm dealing with. So it can be very difficult to find people you can even have those deep, meaningful conversations with and like kind of encourage and connect with one another. And when you repress your emotions and you feel irritated about something someone is doing, but you're not telling them, we're not robots, we're humans. Eventually, you're going to explode, right? And so that's why so many Korean people are just like on edge, just like explode anger. Like I haven't seen so many fights. Like I went to Lovejoy High School, okay, in Clayton County, Georgia, and I have not seen so many fights even there that I've been seeing in Korea with these old people. Subways, fight. Just walking the street outside, two old people fighting. My neighborhood, in my yard, the next door neighbor and some other people in the neighborhood. Oh, I felt it. I said it to Moon. I said, oh, he is cursing. He's like, 새끼야, 대한민국에서 가장 큰 사기꾼이야. 새끼야. Just no emotional regulation of these old people. I cannot. People were not really taught how to express negative emotion. So they hold the stuff in and then just explode. Even like last time we had a barbecue, I think it was, Brianna was coming on the subway coming, so people were fighting the shit. And I tell my husband all the while because he's tall. It was one of the things that I sort of mentioned and he is in the depression video as well because people 200 and little over 200 pounds, but he's tall. He already have issues with his knees and his back. So I say all that to say, for this generation of people, it's very I tell him all the time he needs to go get checked up. If something bothers them, it's because they're not strong enough. They're too sensitive. They need to just get over it, right? Just get over it for the sake of your relationship. But the thing is, you can't hold stuff in for so long. Eventually, people will get angry and like explode at you, and or silently just he just waits till he gets without ever having talked to you about what happened. Worse, I'm a talker. If I see that there's something uncomfortable, I will say something. But just know, if you are going to get married in Korea, it's possible that you're going to have to be the one that brings up the stuff and like sort of coax your partner to like talk about things. Another thing that could put a strain on a marriage and be hard for marriage is just work hours. Like people work the craziest hours like all day until like night. So like a lot of cases is especially hard for the kids because they never see the older you're getting, their mom like or dad all day. And the more issues you have on the weekends, and that can be very difficult for some couples. I know it's something that's a bit difficult for me and Moon because he's basically gone all day until I go to sleep. So we only see him in the morning when he's just getting ready for work. And that's it. It's just basically on the weekends is really the only time that we have to like sit down and chill. But then when you've been working all day and barely getting any sleep all week, on the weekend you don't really want to do much. So there's a lot of cases of people are just so exhausted on the weekends to really spend good quality time and connect with their family. But it seems like a lot of people here were sort of trained to believe that just making money is more important even than interpersonal relationships. I mentioned this in the depression video, but there was this sort of study that they did, and they did massive surveys of people across like 19 different countries, asking things that
Older
they
we
valued.
get,
And in
girl.
every other country, people valued relationships first. Only in one of those countries did people value material well-being first, and that was Korea. People who don't have emotional depth in their relationships are going to seek that somewhere else. And it seems like money is something that's sort of tangible that people can hold on to, and they tend to seek that more for security because it doesn't seem like they've really known emotional security. And it's so sad because relationships turn to just roles. Like, it doesn't matter if I like this person. Obviously, duty is important in relationships because you're not always going to like your husband or wife. I made a video talking about that years ago about things I've learned about marriage in Korea. Like, there's a duty aspect to it. That's what keeps people together. But at the same time, there still needs to be depth in the relationship, and you need to be able to have conversations and spend quality time together with your spouse and your kids, etc. And it shouldn't just be, I feel nothing for this person. In fact, I hate them, but I'm just here doing my role because this is what I'm expected to do. It seems almost sort of empty, and like there's a big lack of connection for a lot of people, and that is something that also I think is just, it's really sad. So the last thing that could put a big strain on your relationship here, on your marriage in Korea, is housework. That's if you're a woman married to a Korean man, of course. There's a lot of stuff about it on the news and like everywhere. But in Korea, if the couple is both working, the man does an average of 40 minutes of housework a day, and the woman does 3 hours and 14 minutes. So even though they're working the same, 3 hours versus 40 minutes, that's a big difference. And if only the man is working and the mom's a stay-at-home mom, she does about 6 hours and 16 minutes of work.
Okay,
And
let's
the
get
guy
this
actually does about
lined up.
47 minutes. Only he works, he actually does more housework. That's a very interesting phenomenon. But out of all the OECD nations, Korea is dead last in the amount of housework that men will do. The place with the highest amount of housework that men do is Denmark. They do about 186 minutes of housework a day. And the average for the OECD nations is 139 minutes, so just over 2 hours. In Korea, men average 45 minutes of housework a day.
Sure.
And there was another news story that popped up, and it had some nations that were not OECD nations, but everybody was like so surprised. On the news, it came up that Korean men even do less housework than men do in India. Apparently, in India, the average is 52 minutes a day. So Korea is, dead last, which obviously working hours are very, very long here. So just the amount of hours you have in a day would be much less to do anything. But when the women are working, they're still doing, over 3 hours of housework. I think when you have a mom who's super hyper focused on you and sort of enmeshed with you and doing everything for you, when you grow up and live on your own and get a wife, I think it's really hard to know even what to do around the house unless someone tells you. But in Korea, it's sort of drilled into man's head that they work, they provide. Yes, that's a great thing.
Let me just finish this up.
They will do whatever they need to do to make sure that their family is okay.
Darn
And
thing
that's something
moved.
that's something that's very admirable. But I think the other aspects of relationships are neglected, like spending time with your kids, like sort of emotionally connecting with them. That connection aspect of, husband and fatherly duties seems to be something that's missing. And up until they've gotten married, their moms are doing everything for them, like every little thing. So if you suddenly take someone who's treated like that and then put them in a situation where they're expected to contribute around the house, it's really hard for a lot of people to fall in line with that. So you have to have a lot of talks about your expectations with that. And in a lot of cases, people live with their parents until like their 30s. So even as working adult, they go to work, they come back to their house where their mom's still doing everything. They don't have to contribute to any sort of household chores. And then they get married, they're still working the same job, but now they have to do extra household work. It's just something that's not really native for them because the moms literally do everything. Even if they move out of the house, the mom will come every week to make food and do laundry. And there's so many people, even in college, like their mom will go to their college to get their laundry and do their laundry for them. And some people don't even know how to do laundry, even like into early adulthood. while I think it's admirable to want to do everything to take care of your kids, I do think they enable them a lot because of the overreach of the moms. A lot of people don't know how to do basic things. Like their life skills are very low. They just know how to study or they just know how to work. And that's it. They've never had to think about what they want to do in their life or make decisions for themselves because everything was set up for parents. So that's something that just makes it difficult in general to really have people get out and live their own lives and like do something like have a marriage, because a lot of people seem to not really even know who they are outside of maybe what their parents or society expects of them. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I literally just sat down and word salad about all the things that I've either learned or experienced. And again, I don't want people to think I'm just here like bashing these people, but I just want you to know that these are some things that go on in society. Before you get married, just share your expectations and just have the open communication and make sure that they're open to having that communication as well. Otherwise, it can be a little bit more difficult, but I think compared to places where you don't have these societal or in-law influences, there's a lot more talking that you need to do about just like stuff in general. I think it's definitely much more difficult to maintain a marriage here, but definitely something that you need to be aware of. Make sure that you are somebody who can, you know, speak up for yourself and share your boundaries, what you will not do. But also you do have to be open to doing some of those things as well that your in-laws expect you to do, because obviously, you know, you're in a different country. You can't just, I'm just doing it my way and that's it. So obviously you will have to compromise on some things, but it requires a lot of talking, a lot of soul searching. And I do think that in order to be married in Korea as a woman, you do need to be quite strong mentally, and you do need to be able to like speak up for yourself, but also you have to be able to compromise. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. During my research on the news, there's a lot of things that we're talking about, like just crazy in-law stories, because a lot of people like share their stories with these psychologists online or with Omrunsunim, the monk that I mentioned, or like even on the news. JTBC News has this segment on the news where people share their crazy like family stories, and they have a therapist and like a divorce lawyer get on there and say like if it's grounds for divorce or not, or what they could do to overcome it. And there are some insane stories. If you want me to just have like a time where we sit down and I just share like the craziest stories that I've come across, then let me know. That could be the video that I do for next week. Just let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it, or if there's something that you want me to talk about or share my ideas about. I mean, I don't know. Share my ideas. Everything doesn't have to be about Korea. It can just be about random things that are happening. If you just care to know what I think for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm still always like, how do people care what I think? I don't know. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and for all the support. If you like this video and you like to see more videos, please subscribe to my YouTube page, which is down below. So for this trip, they booked 3 rooms, one for the daughter-in-law, one for the father-in-law, and one for the mother-in-law to sleep in the room with her son, Mr. Kim. Hello, friends and family. This is Megan Moon, aka As you can hear in my voice, I am sick, okay? My nose was so stuffy last night that I could not breathe out of it at all, and I had to breathe out of my mouth, and I am not a mouth breather by any stretch of the imagination, so I got like 0 sleep last night. I am dead, but I am here to share these stories with you. Last week I made a video talking about why marriage in Korea is difficult, and I talked about a lot of the psychological aspects behind it. And one of the main reasons why it's difficult is because of in-laws, mom-in-laws. And while I was doing research for that video, I came across a bunch of crazy mom-in-law stories. So I asked you guys in the last video if you wanted me to share some of those with you. You guys were like, yes, please share. So that's what we're doing today. So I do want to preface by saying the intention of this video is not to make fun of these people or to talk bad about Korean mom-in-laws, because I do feel bad for them, because the older generation is very much a product of that culture at that time. And I do think that in cultures like this, where husband and wife don't really have good quality marriages, it's very easy for the women to just latch on to their sons, which is what happens a lot. So when you think about it, it's sort of like a way for them to get and receive love. So I totally understand the psychology behind that, and I feel for these people. However, it doesn't mean that we can't enjoy listening to the drama and hearing the tea about these people. Today I'm going to share 2 stories from JTBC News. JTBC News has a segment on it called And on that show, people send in their stories. There's a couple of news announcers sharing their opinion. They always have therapists to sort of share their opinion about psychology and or if it's grounds for divorce, etc. It's a really interesting show. Last one came out, and it blew up. It got like 100 views and like over 3,000 comments. We're gonna go over that one in a second. So this first story, the person who sent in this story, the news announcers just called her Mrs. Kim, and her future husband, boyfriend, let's just call him Mr. Kim. So Mr. and Mrs. Kim, and then mom-in-law and father-in-law, call them mom-in-law. So Mrs. Kim met her boyfriend. They hit it off really well. After about 6 months, they decided that they wanted to move toward marriage. So Mr. Kim called up his parents, set up a meeting between Mrs. Kim and the parents. You know, in Korea, people typically get permission to get married, so it's always necessary that you set up a meeting with the parents, and the parents have to approve of the person before any marriages can take place. So the first time Mrs. Kim met the parents, they met at a shrimp restaurant. And I don't know what it is, but I think Korean men really like to remove the shells from the shrimp before they're eating. In Korea, when you go to shrimp restaurants, especially grilled shrimp, it's always going to have the shells and everything, and all the little legs, and like the head, and like the little antennas. Everything is intact. It's a fully intact shrimp. And Mr. Moon does this for me too. Like whenever we go out and have shrimp, even to this day, we have shrimp at home. He's always going to peel my shrimp for me. I thought stories of other men peeling shrimp for women. I guess it's a thing in Korea. Men peel the shrimp for you, which is great because they look like little nasty bugs to me, and I personally don't like touching the little legs. So thank you, Mr. Moon. So Mr. Kim and Mrs. Kim are sat before mother and father-in-law. The shrimp comes out. Starts peeling the shrimp. His girlfriend at the time. Mom-in-law looks. 엄마부터 안 챙기고 여자친구부터 챙겼냐? So you're not gonna get your mom shrimp first. You're gonna get your girlfriend shrimp first. So Mrs. Kim feels a little bit uncomfortable. Like, okay, what is this? But nobody really says anything. They just kind of gloss over it, and apparently everything else was fine after that because Mrs. Kim went on to marry Mr. Kim. So when they first got married, the mom-in-law would come to the house often, like several times a week, to bring over, you know, side dishes and food for her son. But one day she came over and she brought her son some underwear that she bought. And she says to the daughter-in-law, 내 아들 속옷 사이즈? 네가 어떻게 알겠냐? How can you know my son's underwear size? Like, you don't know his underwear size. 내 아들 속옷 취향? 내가 잘 알아. I know the type of underwear that my son likes. And then she goes on to say, 앞으로 속옷 내가 사겠다. I'm going to buy his underwear from now on.
Oh, shoot.
Mrs. Kim is like, excuse me? And here she sort of shared that she was worried that she's just being too sensitive. Like, am I just being too sensitive? Is this something that's appropriate?
Yep.
Do all moms continue to buy their adult 30-something-year-old
We all have starting to have issues. Once you get to 30, that's it.
She just kind of let it go, and
once
whatever,
you get to
they didn't
30.
want to cause a fight. So one day shortly after, Mr. and Mrs. Kim went to mother and father-in-law's house to have a meal. There's a bunch of side dishes. One of my favorite side dishes is gosari, which is like fern break, and then it just has a little bit of soy sauce and sesame oil on it, a little bit of sesame seeds, and mom-in-law made something called 갈비찜, which is braised short ribs and like a sweet soy sauce. It's really good. So when you go to your mother-in-law's house and she's in the kitchen cooking, you're supposed to go in and ask if she needs any help. So Mrs. Kim goes into her mom's kitchen. Hey, do you need some help? And she goes to pick up something to start helping. Mom-in-law smacks her hand. 내가 할 거야. I'm going to do that. So the daughter-in-law didn't do anything. She just kind of sat around, and then the table was set. There's all these side dishes, so delicious. Everything smells good. So the mom-in-law takes her chopsticks, picks up a piece of the braised short ribs, and puts it up to her son and says, 아들아, 갈비찜 좀 먹을래? My son, do you want to have some braised short ribs? And to the daughter-in-law, she picks up her chopsticks and picks up some gosari, which is fern break, that like brown stem-looking thing that you see in the bibimbap. You might be like, okay, she's offering the daughter-in-law some food, like what's the big deal? But how it is she's saying this good thing, this meat, is going to be for my son, and you, the daughter-in-law, you know, you just have the vegetables, right? And no matter how good these vegetables are, obviously, you know, they eat it. That is right? The meat and potatoes is what we say even as a colloquial expression in English, right? Like the main sustenance of the food. And basically she's saying, I'm going to give my son these good things, and you can't just take whatever.
Wow.
Mrs. Kim said this is the first time she seriously considered divorce because her husband didn't say anything. Like you'd expect he would say, "Oh, my wife likes Kyrie Jim too, or she can have Kyrie Jim or whatever." But he didn't say anything. But Mrs. Kim felt like very just disrespected. Like, why is this woman coming for me like this? So then, not too long after, the father-in-law was like, "Hey, why don't we all travel together? Let's go on a trip." You know, Mr. and Mrs. Kim, mother and father-in-law. Like, what could go wrong? We would all bond, and it would be a great trip, right? The problem started right from even reserving the accommodations for the trip. If you're going on a trip with your in-laws, you would expect that we would reserve 2 rooms. One for Mr. and Mrs. Kim, and one for mother and father-in-law. But mom-in-law comes out and says, "You know what? I want to sleep in the room with my son. So how about we all get one big room and we all sleep in one big room together?" This is like one of the times where the son spoke up. He was like, it'd probably be uncomfortable if we're all sharing one big room. Like, let's have our separate space. 그럼 오랜만에 아들이랑 자겠다. I'm gonna sleep in the room with my son. It's been a long time since we've done that. And she says to the daughter-in-law, "너는 다른 방에서 편하게 자라. You just go sleep in another room and be comfortable." So for this trip, they booked 3 rooms. One for the daughter-in-law, one for the father-in-law, and one for the mother-in-law to sleep in the room with her son, Mr. Kim. The whole time I'm just thinking, where is the father-in-law? Like, the father-in-law should say, "Hey, honey, maybe that's a bit much. You gonna sleep in the room with me, and they gonna sleep in the room together." But the father-in-law's like, "Well, what's he doing?" So they booked the accommodations that way, and Mrs. Kim was sort of complaining to her husband, like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he was like,
crazy. I am doing good, my darling.
I'm gonna sleep with my mom. She's just lonely. That's why, she wants to sleep with me. But it's like, she has a husband. He's not dead. Even if her husband was dead and she was a widow, still, that would be just not even appropriate, right? Like, okay, you're gonna die. Find some friends. I don't know. Definitely don't be trying to sleep in the room with your son. Sometimes when these stories are on, I'm like watching them like with Mr. Moon, and I'm like, "Sir, if she has mom-in-law ever, we will be done because I could never. But apparently this is the thing. In the last video, I mentioned this monk who's really popular on YouTube, He has like millions of subscribers, and people call into him and like
This is Korea. This is South
Korea. 2 years
Korea.
ago, there was a story on there,
Like
and
the
this widow
shit.
mom-in-law lived with her son and his
I
wife
sleep.
in a one-room apartment.
What?
And there was just like a curtain that blocked it off.
His
The
parents
mom-in-law
are
wants to sleep
too
with the son, so
upset.
the wife has just been sleeping on the couch, and the mom-in-law and son-in-law have been sleeping like sort of out of the way behind the curtain. And she was married to this man for 25 years.
Oh hell no.
I cannot. Anyway, but I've heard many stories of like mom-in-laws wanting to like sleep like next to their sons and stuff. It's not common. In here to think that I'm saying that it's common, but I've just heard a lot of stories and like stuff like that happening. So there are some people who do that, but it's definitely not the most common thing. Go back to the story. So I said, what is the father-in-law doing? Like, why isn't he saying why?
Yeah, like why you not trying to get your wife in the
Apparently, he's
room?
just going along with whatever she wants, because when they were on that trip together, which they did actually go on, if it was me, I would have said, "Well, I'm not going on a trip. Why are you going to mom by yourself?" Apparently, that's what she wants. I don't know. I probably would have done it already. But in the story, she didn't say where they went, but I'm going to say they went to Jeju. So they're in Jeju-do. It's beautiful, beautiful scenery. And the mom's like, "Why don't we all take a picture?" So the father-in-law's like, "Okay, I'll take the picture of everyone." Mom-in-law goes, grabs her son's arm, sort of nudges the
Like she doing too much.
away. And she goes, "You gotta take a picture with your mom first." Like, she comes after me. And Mrs. Kim shared her story that at this point she felt like she's the second wife to Mr. Kim. Right? The first wife is
Like,
the mom.
sir,
The second wife is her.
either
She's
married to
like,
me
"I cannot
or
stay in
you
this
married to
situation
your
much longer."
mom.
She didn't last very long. She got a divorce after a year.
Yeah,
But even still, that's
she
longer
said
than I would've lasted.
she
There
made
are
a
some
reference
people in
to
the stories I've
India,
heard from divorce lawyers where in
whereas
these situations,
the
women are like 2,
percentage
3 months
of
later,
men who
they're like, "I'm
actually
out."
help
So
to
at this
clean the
point in the story,
household in
she
India
shared
is
that Mr. Kim also
55%,
has a younger sister.
and in
Up to
Korea
this
it's
point, you thought that
43%.
Mr. Kim was maybe an only
No,
child, but no, there's a younger sister.
yeah,
And apparently the younger sister
43%.
left the house because her
Yeah.
mom shared so much favoritism
So
for
she
the
was just
son.
making a
And it's so
reference about
sad. This
that.
daughter said that she never felt any type of love or warmth from her mom at all.
No,
So
I
as soon as she
lied.
could, she started
35
working and left the house.
minutes.
And like, how sad is that? To
And
not
in
feel any
India
love for
is
your mom,
55
bonding
minutes.
over,
When
your
women who
brother like
works
that.
the
Like, I
same
can't
amount of
imagine what
hours
kind
or
of
more
impact it would have
do
on her.
36
But
hours.
she was like, "You know what? I'm gonna get out
Yeah.
and control my own life a little bit." Because I've heard that there are people who are upset, like, bend over backwards to try and please their parents instead dead. So good on her for getting out. Anyway, the trip to Jeju-do is over. Everyone's back at home. A couple days later, after coming back from Jeju-do, Mrs. Kim is at home getting some cleaning done. Ding dong, doorbell rings. She goes and gets it. It's a package. She opens it up. It's some couple clothes. It's like a sweatpants, like sweatshirt and sweatpants. Couple pants, like a man's size and a woman's size. So she's thinking because of that trip that didn't go so well, maybe mom-in-law's just trying to make amends and send them some couple clothes that they can wear. Mom-in-law calls. 여보세요. couple 집에 도착했지? The couple clothes arrived all right?
Yeah.
그 옷
At
나랑
least they
내가
help a little bit.
한번 여행할 때 입으려고 산 거거든? Mrs. Kim is like, what? Just ordered some couple clothes that you want to wear with your son-in-law for the next time we go on a trip. The mom-in-law goes on to say that she had them sent to the house so her son could try it on to make sure it fits so that she could get a different size so she could fit it later on. It was at this point in time that Miss Kim decided to divorce. I don't blame her. Everyone in the comments was like, divorce, divorce, divorce. One thing that a lot of people are saying nowadays, and I think a lot of people are feeling, is that mainly it's up to the husband to sort of set those boundaries. Like the older generation is sort of set their ways, not caught up with their ways. And mother-in-law and father-in-law definitely should have been blocking out from a while ago. But maybe her personality is just strong and people just don't want to fight with her and they think it's easier to just give her what she wants instead of going against it, because maybe she throws a big tantrum. Definitely, one thing I said in the last
He
video,
throws everything in the
all
garbage.
mom-in-laws are not like this, where they're like
That's
really
his way of
trying to treat
cleaning.
your husband like their husband, but
That's too
they
funny.
inevitably will do things that you feel like cross the line. So you have to make sure that you have a partner who's willing to speak up and set those boundaries really strongly, like Mr. Moon does. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. And also, you have to be someone who's willing to speak up for what you feel uncomfortable with and what you will and will not tolerate. It's not for the faint of heart. If you're somebody who's a people pleaser and you're married here and you have in-laws that are like very traditional,
You're
it can be
screwed.
very difficult to you. Just a forewarning. So this next story I actually found this morning. I was gonna do another story, but I found this one. It popped up immediately because it's been one of the most viral ones that they've had. And the person who sent in the story to JTBC News is also a Mrs. Kim. So we will be calling Mr. and Mrs. Kim and mother and father-in-law once again. So Mrs. Kim is around 35 years old. She met an amazing man. They should get married. So on the first meeting she had with her mother-in-law
Divorce.
addressed her like, yeah,
And that's why a lot of Korean women don't want to get married or have babies. For this very reason, the moms want to be the wives.
Where you're saying things and you're putting you at the end. There's also something called very high language where you and completely different set of words.
There's no way you're trying to sleep in the same room as your son and you're buying couples outfits to wear with your son, ma'am. You want to marry your son? What is this?
Like, it's just a totally different language. So you have to learn extra words for stuff to address old people. Like, it's that serious, like rankings and who's older.
I want to see these so bad. Send me a photo in my email. I've yet to see one of your stuff creative.
And so it really irritates
Your
me
stuff,
when you meet someone for the very
bunnies,
first time, older or
what
not,
you
and they
make.
speak in like informal language. I guess I've been in Korea long. I expect to be respected the amount of respect that I give to you. So it's not typical for a respectful old person, even if they meet someone older, they typically will in everything, right? Because they don't know you still, right? Maybe after you met a couple times, then maybe they'll switch to informal language because they're older, they can make that decision. But when you first meet someone, especially not the person who's going to be marrying your son, you definitely wouldn't be like, yeah, no. No means you. Yeah, it's just like, hey. Like, that's completely disrespectful. I don't even talk to Moon like that. Like, we don't even talk to each other like that. So her mom-in-law was addressing her in that way, just very, very informally and disrespectfully. But she thought, maybe that's just how my future mother-in-law is. Whatever. For whatever reason, she proceeded to go along with the marriage. When Mr. and Mrs. Kim decided to get married, they decided not to get any help from either side of the family. And they also decided that they weren't going to exchange gifts. There's something called 예물 and 예단, which are gifts that either side sort of exchanges for themselves. Sometimes it could be a huge amount of money, or it's like very, very expensive gifts. Like, I'm talking in the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of money that you exchange between families for this marriage to happen. happen. Nowadays, people don't do that. I didn't do that. It's outdated, but there's still a lot of older people who want to do it and think it's necessary. Nowadays, when people get married, they typically, up until marriage, the parents support you, even get you a house, like to live in after marriage. But in the case where your parents are paying for your marriage, paying for your house after marriage, you know that they're going to be intruding and breaking all the boundaries because they feel entitled to do so because they are the ones who set up this marriage for you. So a lot of younger people are like, they don't want to accept money or anything from their parents because they feel less entitled to sort of intrude in that marriage. So it's very admirable that the couple got married without any help from their families. So they go through with the marriage. After the marriage, mom-in-law calls up daughter-in-law. Bring, bring. 야, 너 정말 해도 너무한다. Like, you're doing the most, basically. 어떻게 우리 아들 10원 한 장 안 내면서 데려갈 수가 있냐? How could you not even pay even just a penny to take my son and live with him? 아들한테 얘기하지 마라. 얘랑 각 1,000만 원 보내라.
To take my son.
You need to send me $10,000 for the yedan price. So the mother-in-law calls the daughter-in-law secretly to demand $10,000. Mrs. Kim didn't want to cause any trouble, so she didn't tell her husband, and she sent her mom-in-law $10,000. Now I'm saying $10,000. 1,000만 원 is 10 million Korean won. I think it would be maybe like 8,000 US dollars. So let me just clarify that. But she did wind up telling her husband, and the husband asked the mom, and the mom was like, well, I already called the other in-laws, and then, I sent them some stuff too, just without telling you. But even still, that's crazy. Like, your son and daughter got married without asking you guys for they just got married. So you're calling up these people and saying, I deserve money because they got married.
Oh, shit.
That is such old school
that is very old
to go behind your son and daughter's back to get money from people because they got married on their own. But even still, Mrs. Kim carried on and she got pregnant on their honeymoon. They are having a honeymoon baby. In Korean, the word is honeymoon baby. They have the same word, like in English, honeymoon baby. You just say it with a Korean accent. Honeymoon baby. Everybody knows what you're talking about. So mom-in-law goes to visit daughter-in-law and she says, hey, even though you're pregnant, you still need to cook my son 3 meals a day. And at night, if you get hungry or have cravings or whatever, don't send him out to go get you stuff. Don't bother him with that. Don't go asking him to buy you this and that while you're pregnant. Mrs. Kim didn't say whether or not she followed her mother-in-law's directions. She just moves directly on to a couple days before the birth. So anyway, they're a few days away from the birth, and suddenly there's complications with the birth.
No, Jeanette.
Exactly what those complications were, but her husband, Mr. Kim, rushed her to the hospital, and at the hospital, the doctor says you guys need to have an emergency C-section.
I need to see it.
Probably Mr. Kim called
I need to see it. Definitely need to email me a photo. Let me see.
You cannot have a C-section. They're literally at
Jeanette, no hot pink yet.
Situation. The doctor's saying we have
maybe for Valentine's Day.
No, you cannot. Her reasoning is that when you have a natural birth, the baby is smarter and more healthy. So the mom-in-law says, we need to go to another hospital. Well, they will let us do a natural birth. Typically in an emergency like this, we want to care more for the mom's health than maybe the possible health of the future baby. I know that sounds horrible, but typically in hospital situations, they're thinking about the mom's life, right? How do we make sure the mom's life is safe? But it seems like that mom-in-law is only interested in the baby. She's like, I don't care if you're healthy or not, or if it's good for you or not, or whatever emergency you're going through, losing blood or whatever. Okay, you just need to have a natural birth because that's better for the baby. Thankfully, this is one of the times where the husband sort of stood up and said, okay, mom, you need to head out, right? Because this is an emergency. I don't know if the wife could die or whatever. Mrs. Kim didn't say what the issue was, but it's like, okay, you need to go. So he sent the mom out and they wound up having a C-section and delivering a healthy baby boy. And typically in Korea, when babies are born right away, you don't actually have to have a name and birth certificate. You just do that typically within 1 month of birth. And so we also didn't have a name for one of our kids right at birth either. And another reason why they do that is because a lot of people at birth, when they get the names, they actually go to, a lot of people are superstitious still, so they'll go to monks or other sort of people who do tarot type of things, and they'll go to them and give them the baby's date and time of birth, and then they will go and find a lucky name for them. Like in Korea, a lot of people have superstition around name, like choosing a name determines your future, even to the point where if people go to a fortune teller and they tell them that their current name is not lucky and they need to change their name, they will change their name. Even you guys, I don't know, if you follow me on Instagram, years ago, when I was first training to like do competitions and stuff. My trainer, she actually did that like 2 years ago. She was like, I was told that this name is not lucky and that my son's name is not lucky. So she changed her name and her son's name based on what the fortune teller said. So it's very common for people to not have names for their kids like right at birth. But Mr. and Mrs. Kim decided when they named their kids that they were going to take one syllable from Mr. Kim's name, one syllable from Mrs. Kim's name, put it together, and that was what they were going to name their baby. Typically in Korea, people's names have 2 syllables plus the last name, so 3 syllables total. So that actually sounds like a good idea. I think me and Moon should steal that if we have a 3rd kid. Do you think the mother-in-law liked the name? No. She said, guys, I already went to a monk and I got a name chosen for us. That name is Takung Pai. I've been in Korea for quite some time, so just upon hearing that name, I know that it's a very old people name. It doesn't really fit with current society, and that kid is going to be mocked in school.
You got that right.
So this is another one of the situations where the couple put their foot down. They were like, okay, no, we are not naming our kid Pai. Okay, we're gonna name our kid blah blah blah. So the mother-in-law was furious that they weren't gonna name their kid.
Ooh, she was red hot.
Very dramatically, she says, if you don't name your kid this, your house is going to fall. Basically, I guess the mom said this is a lucky name for this child, and if this child is not named that, you're gonna have bad luck. Basically, is what she's saying. So that was another big issue that the mom-in-law put up a huge fight with the name, but obviously did not name their kid Bong Pai. Nobody would probably name their kid that. So fast forward a little bit later. Mrs. Kim's mom lives in the countryside, and she made a whole bunch of Mrs. Kim's favorite dishes, and Mrs. Kim was out, I believe, at work. Mom-in-law was at the house, and Mrs. Kim's mom came up from the countryside, probably took a couple hours, and she brought a whole bunch of side dishes. And
this sounds like a K-drama.
I brought all these side dishes for you. They'll be waiting for you when you get home. So Mrs. Kim is at work, and she's thinking about her mom's cooking, and she's like, I just can't wait to have my mom's cooking. She gets home, she opens the refrigerator.
Nothing.
None of the
like,
mom's
bitch, if you throw away the food so my mom brought me.
Hey, where's the food that my mom brought up from the countryside? 그거 내가 다 버렸어. Oh, I threw all that food away. 재료값 내가 줄 테니까 네가 다시 만들어라. I'm gonna give you money so you can go buy the ingredients, but you need to remake that food. The daughter-in-law, Mrs. Kim, was like, excuse me? And a fight ensued. She's like, why would you do that? And the mom-in-law's like, because there was a hair in it. Mrs. Kim is like, well, you can take the hair out. Why would you throw all the food away? Mom-in-law's like, that food is dirty. Then mom-in-law gets really heated because I think this is the first time daughter-in-law really stepped up to her and like gave her a piece of her mind. But mother-in-law starts.
But why would you throw away something that's not yours?
Some people are talking, they're all in your face. They're like, hey, I said this. And she's just going off on Mrs. Kim. She's saying, how dare you talk to me like that? Your parents must not have taught you anything. And she's just pushing Mrs. Kim's head right there. So Mrs. Kim, in an effort to get her to stop pushing her head back, sort of does a slapping motion. And she accidentally slaps the mom-in-law in the face. Just ever so lightly while she's pushing the head back. And mom-in-law flips. She hits Mrs. Kim, her daughter-in-law, in the face so hard that her glasses fly off. And she just keeps on hitting her. And then mother-in-law goes into the trash can, gets the food that she threw away, gets food out of the trash can, starts throwing it all around the house. She's legit having the tantrum of her life. And daughter-in-law's not hitting her back or anything. She's just sort of, okay, it was an accident. I didn't mean to punch her in the face. But even still, after she accidentally hit her in the face, mom-in-law proceeds to actually hit her up, like in her face, like actual violence.
Oh, hell no. We was gone. Tumble in there. Thank goodness my mother-in-law is so
like that,
sweet.
And the husband's like, what? How dare you hit my mom? You get on your knees right now and you beg for forgiveness. How dare you do that? And then Mrs. Kim is like, no, sir. So Mr. Kim grabs his mom's hand and proceeds to leave. The people in the comment section were going crazy, like, what? What is wrong, like, with that husband? But even the MC and stuff was like, yeah. The seems like a situation where you wouldn't really be able to get out of. It seems like he's going to continue to just be on the side of his mom for everything. And while I do understand listening to a situation like that where somebody like accidentally hit your mom could be jarring for a lot of people in a society where, you know, things are so hierarchical, but the fact that it was overlooked that the mom actually went Rambo on her, but like with a fist instead of a gun, punched everything and threw food all around the house, that he just lets that go and it's just the wife's fault and only she needs to apologize. Like everybody was going, this video
honey
had over
boo boo,
3,000 comments, and people are like, the mom-in-law just needs to live with her son forever. Why would you take someone's precious daughter and cause her so much grief? And it has 3,000 likes. And somebody's like, yeah, a husband like that is not a husband that you could believe in and have faith in. Definitely needs to get a divorce. 3,500 likes. Damn. Somebody was saying, like what I was saying, girl, you shouldn't have got married. Like, when they first meet, you would call you yacht and help, like use that like informal language. And there's a lot of people saying that they had similar situations with their mother-in-law. There's a lot of people on there that are like they had similar situations like with their mom-in-law and stuff like that. And it's so sad that like even to this day there's still such extreme cases of that going on. But I think after this next generation, it will most likely like die out a lot. So I have faith that the next generation of parent-children relationships will be much more healthy.
That's if you guys have any children to look forward to.
Korean moms and laws. I've come across some TV
because
shows
now like yes, now like Korean women, they're not trying to have kids, they're not trying to have babies and get married. Like the birth rate is the lowest in the world.
I think people are starting to take notice of like mental health and stuff like that, and there's a lot of programs.
And a lot of Korean men are now having babies with foreigners. So yeah, Korean women aren't having it.
So
okay,
hopefully as time goes on, things will change and get better, and we will have less and less of these kind of insane mom-in-law stories. There are still so many stories out there, but today I just wanted to share these two. This video is quite long already. But if there are some video topics that you want me to cover, or some things that you've heard that are happening in Korea and you want me to share information about it, then let me know down below. If you know of some crazy stories that you want me to share or talk about,
girl, that's a soap opera indeed. I've only watched dramas with that type of thing.
That's kind of where we can start. But I'm hoping that in the future we can just talk about more other things, maybe even beside Korea. So let me know if there's some things that you want me to talk about, or things that you
I keep getting like this fuzz in my nose.
I have a lot of editing and music and stuff. So this is new to me to sort of be doing a more podcast style video also. So if there are some things that you would like to see change in the video, or some things that you would like for me to do, then just let me know, because these videos are also just sort of like a trial for me as well. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you like this video and like to see more videos, please subscribe to my YouTube page down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and on Snap.
Girl, I love her stories now. Like, there's a new creator that I come across today, and I love her stories too. I had to subscribe, because man, these mother-in-laws tripping.
My Korean skincare is back on sale at 45% off, free international shipping. You get a whole set: cleanser, toner, serum, and cream for $56, available till December the 8th. Hello, friends and family. This is Megan Moon, aka Talent Migutsaram. And oh my god, I found this new program. It's called Enopupu. It comes on Saturday nights at 11 p.m. in Korea because it's a bit racy, so it's like rated R. In this program, people send in their crazy marriage stories, and girl, the drama. Okay, it's salivating. So I started watching this one that was really popular on YouTube, and then I was like, you know what? This is a show. Like, I have got to tell you guys this story because you guys love some dramatic mother-in-law stories, and this is the most dramatic of all dramatic mother-in-law stories I have ever seen and heard about.
Okay, tell me it, sis.
pretending I ain't seen it. So this is a story that a daughter-in-law sent in. We don't know her real name. Let's just call her Yuna. Side note, this is not related to anyone named Yuna. Her husband's name will be Minho. So Yuna and Minho's parents have mom-in-law comes to bring a plate of fruit. When people come over, Asian moms bring the fruit. But the mom, when she goes to put the fruit on the coffee table, she goes in front of her son and bends down like a little bend and snaps up her ass, like in her son's lap. Yuna is watching. Mom sits below her son, offers him some fruit. He got a little fruit on his face, so she takes her thumb, wipes off the fruit, and then
like, what is this shit?
Minho says, "Mama, 그거 먹으면 어떡해?" Daughter-in-law's just looking like. The whole rest of the time that they're at the in-laws' house, the mom is just like touching his leg and that was one thing. Then she skips next in her story to just talk about one time it was her husband Minho's birthday. In Korea, for birthdays, people like to go to hotel stays. They call it bukangs. You go to a nice fancy hotel with a good swimming pool or a jacuzzi or something like that, and you stay there. So Yuna and Minho are at a hotel. So the husband just keeps on texting someone. Yuna's like, 아까부터 누가랑 톡을 해? Oh, I'm just texting, someone just wishing me happy birthday. At that moment, the hotel room doorbell rings. Yuna's just like, who the hell's at our hotel? She goes to open the door. Who do you think
Gotta get me a little snack, cause this is hot.
They hug, right?
Let me go back a little bit.
That was one. Wipes off the fruit and then eats that. Minho says, 엄마, 그거 먹으면 어떡해? Daughter-in-law's just looking like, gross. So the whole rest of the time that they're at the in-laws' house, the mom is just like touching his leg and that was one thing. Then she skips next in her story to just talk about one time it was her husband Minho's birthday. In Korea, for birthdays, people like to go to hotels.
Girl, the story is juicy.
You go to a nice fancy hotel with a good swimming pool or a jacuzzi or something like that, and you stay there. So Yuna and Minho are at a hotel. So the husband just keeps on texting someone. Yuna's like, 아까부터 누가랑 톡을 해? Oh, I'm just texting, someone just wishing me happy birthday. At that moment, the hotel room doorbell rings. Yuna's just like, who the hell's at our hotel? She goes to open the door. Who do you think it is? 어머니. It's the mom-in-law. Then the son, they hug, right? So that's why you were wondering what hotel we were at and what room we were in. And Yuna's like, what the hell is going on? And then the mom-in-law says, it's customary for you to congratulate your in-laws on your husband's birthday because they're the ones that birthed this husband for you. So the daughter-in-law was trying to be a good daughter-in-law, right? So
you too.
Like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. How silly of me. How about you stay here with us and join us? The hotel rents bathing suits, so if you want to come swim with us, then you're welcome to do that. The mom was like, I brought my own bathing suit, just in case. The audacity to crash your son's birthday with his wife and then bring your bathing suit, you harlot. That's as far as I got. Let's keep watching. So they're at the swimming pool now. Guys, I have the same bathing suit. But mine is olive green because I'm green. I got the same bathing suit as a harlot. So the mom comes out in the bathing suit and then the son's like, oh mom, you look so beautiful. Daughter-in-law's just sitting there awkwardly. Mom-in-law goes over to her son. Oh, but I'm afraid of getting in the water, all up on him. And then Minho.
Is this her real son?
They go into the pool like a freaking couple. Daughter-in-law Yuna is just like, what the fuck is happening? If it was not your sign to get a divorce, then how can you sit there and not say anything? At least compete with the woman, get in the pool and be splashing water.
Yes.
Look, I'm here too. She'd just be sitting there on the sideline. I couldn't help it. So just so you know, they do skip around situations in this because a person's just sort of telling their story and they're having it reenacted. Anyway, so the next situation happened years later after she has given birth and had a child by this man. And it is one night at the apartment. They are in the bed sleeping. Yuna hears a dee 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 at the door. She's frantically trying to wake up her husband Minho, right? Somebody's breaking into our house. What do you think came into the house? The mom-in-law jumps in the bed and hugs her son in the bed and it's oh my god, my son, your dad just came in and said he's gonna kill me. So daughter-in-law's confused, what's wrong with your dad? And then the son, Minho, just keeps petting his mom. How about you come and stay at our house for a few days? And then daughter-in-law's excuse me, what's going on? Let me calm down my mom first and then I'll tell you everything. And it's what do you mean? Like, if there's some stuff going out there, like, that's the kind of stuff that, like, you and your wife supposed to have been talking about, right? So Mino puts his mom to sleep on the couch, right? And so he finally tells her the truth, which is, before he went to the military, he and his mom had actually got a divorce. But like in Korea, like you might not know, if you come from a divorced home, it could cause issues. The bride's family might not want someone whose in-laws are divorced. He paid his dad to pretend to be married to the mom and come join all the activities. So basically, he just lied. My brain exploded. So then, her husband goes on to say, my mom, after they got divorced, she raised me singly. I was able to go to college, have a good life, make good money. Was like, oh, okay, so now I understand why, his mom is so obsessed with him. And then she was just like, moving past it. I think she's too nice. So the next
too nice.
Again,
way too nice.
House. She has all of her friends over, and in traditional fashion, the daughter-in-law cooked all the food for the friends and stuff at the mom-in-law's house. It was good. And one of the friends complimented, hey, this food is really good. You married such a great woman. So the mom and son-in-law sit together. The mom-in-law grabs the son's hand. Yeah, our daughter-in-law is really skilled. That's why she was able to marry such a good man, such as my son. Then the son, with the mom's hand in hand, is like, oh, you're such a, what's the word? Like proud of, you know what? I'm going to say what she's saying in Korean and we're going to put a subtitle. Right away, he then goes and say that he's the one who got lucky for having his wife. Glad he said that. Not the mom-in-law.
Girl, this is spicy. Like, what the this have me confused. Like, what the hell is this?
Daughter-in-law goes in the kitchen and she's doing stuff, doing the dishes or whatever. And then the mom-in-law comes over and then she's like, don't get it twisted. My son did not marry you because he liked you. He married you because you were mine. The audacity. It's so funny because the people who are reacting to it on the panel, sometimes you hear their words. And at the moment when she said that, the woman on the panel was like, oh, anybody with two eyes should be able to see that this mom is like trying to like assert her dominance and say, I'm the queen bee.
So that's not how you assert your dominance. Oh crap.
Calling her husband, he's not answering. She's like, you know what? I'm just going to have to take a taxi to take this baby to the hospital because the fever is high. The door opens and in walks husband. Husband's on the phone and he's like, Mom, I think we should hang up. I'm going to have to talk to you later. Yuna is livid. She's like, you're on the phone with your mom. Like, I've been calling you so many times for you to come because your son has a freaking fever and we have to get to the hospital. But you've been on the phone with your mom again? So the husband's like, okay, I'm going to go get the baby back this time. Okay, Yuna was like, you know what? I'm not putting up with this bitch no more. I'm going to say something. Your mom only lives 10 minutes away, yet you have to call her on the phone every day for 1 freaking hour. How can you have so much to talk to her about? So the husband says, well, these days I work on the weekends too, so I can't go to see her often. So, I'm just calling to see how she's doing. But come on, like, this is my own personal idea. 1 hour a day talking on the phone to your mom when she lives freaking 10 minutes away. Like, I'm just thinking, like, when I was dating,
I don't even talk to my mom every day.
Talk every day for 1 hour on the phone. That's too much. Like, he probably need to talk to his wife on the phone. So they pack the bags, they get the baby to the hospital, and assumingly the baby was fine. And then it skips to another section on another day, and she's a housewife, so it's a weekday, and during the daytime, she took her son to her parents' house to have them watch the baby, and she decided that she was going to go to her mom-in-law's house. She's like, you know what, I'm going to go deal with this myself, talk to my mom-in-law myself. She gets to the mom-in-law's house. She comes in that door with a stern face.
Yes, bitch.
Mom-in-law's like, you didn't call, like, what's the matter? So the daughter-in-law walks into the house, and who do you think is sitting on the couch on a weekday, eating some fried chicken in his underwear? Her husband. So Yuna was like, why are you here over here at your mom's house and not at work? Mom-in-law says, why are you acting so surprised? He didn't tell you. Every week he takes
That
off
can't be
one
his real
vacation
mom.
day from work and comes
No
stay with
way.
me during the weekdays. What? Every week you take off of work to go to your mom's house behind your wife's back. What does this world come to? So Yuna is upset, and rightfully so.
And
At first she thought
rightfully?
it was the mom-in-law who's just very obsessed with the son. But she's like, no. Like, my husband, is also very obsessed with his mom. Like, what is happening? I guess is tired, so he went into his mom's bedroom and is asleep on his mom's bed. Daughter-in-law Yuna and mom-in-law are just sat at the table. Let's see what transpires. My son Mino is so tired these days. He works so hard, so make sure you're not sleeping with him a lot, so that you don't let all his energy.
Ma'am, you cross so many lines.
Okay,
it's not
this is
even
something
funny.
that I've heard a lot. That happens a lot with these mom-in-laws. There was this one situation I heard. Okay, intervention. Let me tell you about another story. This one divorce lawyer talked about situations that she's had, and she's like, it happens like kind of often. Like the son is sick, the mom-in-law will come over. She'll tell the daughter-in-law, don't sleep in the bed with him because we don't want you to arouse him and then cause him to like have sex with you and then lose his energy. Like he needs to rest. Why would that even like come out of your mouth? Okay, so
I need some milk.
So I know what's about to happen right now.
What?
Okay, so mom-in-law goes into her bedroom where her son is on her bed. Daughter-in-law comes to see what's happening. Mom-in-law sits on the bed and takes her hand, slides it under the blanket, slides it down to the BP, and you see her hand just moving like that.
You freaking kidding me? What the
It's
hell?
like one of the first comments somebody had, like, what kind of mom touches her son's penis? Everybody was just saying in Korean down below, and I was like, no, mom, take this off. Okay, you know what? These are actors. Okay, they're unrelated. Okay, now you watch it. Oh. Daughter-in-law, you heard that? She the boss here, bro. Mom-in-law was stroking the pee-pee of her son while he's asleep in her bed. Yeah, I feel like I need to like wash my eyes out. Can you please splash some water on my eyes?
No, splash it on my brain because I don't need to know that.
These days, he's very tired and seems like he doesn't have energy, so I was
Miss, you need to go to jail.
Yeah, lies. She said, you make sure you do it every morning. The man was like, Michiko, you're crazy. The daughter-in-law said after she witnessed that, she went to her parents' house for a few days because, like, what the frick? Doesn't know what to do. And finally, after a few days, she's gone back to her house. Her husband, Minho, is there waiting for her. He's got champagne and food at the table, presumably trying to do a date and trying to make amends.
We getting
but,
a divorce.
you can't make amends with that. Like, it doesn't matter what woman, family member that is, mom or not, like, that's some cheating ass behavior right there. And like the fact that mom-in-law said, I'm just checking his health, like, you got to know that's not the first time she touched his dick. Back it up. And that's what she's saying. Let's see what transpires.
That's weird.
So because they're sitting there having some wine, he says, I can't only help but be focused on my mom 24 hours a day. And he's about to explain why the hell that is, Sam. But apparently it was 10 years ago, him and his mom have had this kind of relationship. 10 years! That's a long time. So after the mom and dad got a divorce, the mom, had to take care of herself. So she opened up a store selling clothes in the market. So he's in his military outfit. He's spying on his mom at her clothing store. Like, he just comes up and he's like, Mom, could help you with your bag. They take the bag, they go into the store. There's a man in that store. The mom goes to bring this man some coffee. And she accidentally spills the hot coffee on his lap. And he's like, getting really dramatic like that. Of course, the mom is apologizing, like, oh, she's only. So then the son comes over and he's like, he's at a luga. The man stands up and is like, yeah, how dare you be so rude to me? I'm your mom's boyfriend. So the son grabs his mom's arm. Like, come outside with me. But then the boyfriend grabs the son's hand and pulls it back.
What in the ancestry shit is this?
So disrespectful. So then the son punches him in the face like a real good punch and falls down. So the son is explaining to his wife, like, every time she gets a new boyfriend, he always winds up being like a crazy man like this, doesn't respect her, and I feel like it's my fault because I couldn't protect her because, I was trying to protect her. It is not your fault. It is your father's fault, okay? Your responsibility is not for her like that. And he explains to his wife that it's from this moment on that I really started becoming obsessed with my mom. The guilt hits people every time. Then he goes on to say, if I'm not here
Listen, my
protecting her,
mouth
she's
is
gonna
so
keep on
tired of
being
dropping.
sitting at the nuts out there, committed men who are trash. So I have to be here to protect her. That's why I'm so obsessed with her. So they clean glasses. And then as they're about to sip, the husband's looking at his phone. And the wife is like, oh, Monia, is it your mom again? So then he gets really dramatic. He's looking at his phone. And he's like, I can't act like that, but let me try. And the Oscar goes to the wife looks at the phone and it's freaking CCTV of his mom's house. This man put up CCTV in his mom's house so he could spy on her and see when she had her boyfriends over.
What? That is not healthy. That is not a healthy relationship.
Naturally, he and his wife go over to the mom's house because remember it's only 10 minutes away. They roll up in the mom's house. Let's see what transpires. Oh, don't punch the man. Let's make a bet. I bet he punches the man. $10. But give him my $10. I told you to stay away from my mom. And then the man falls, and then like lots of money like falls all over the floor. But she's always in these situations with the man using for her money, I guess. So that's what's happening. So the man collects his money and leaves. Daughter-in-law's just sat there like, what is that? So mom and son are about to have a conversation. Mom starts off with, why always with these sort of trash men? She's like, I'm so sorry, my son, this man would always message me and say, let's meet up. So, I just did. Your mom is just so lonely, that's why I'm so lonely. So the son just goes on and calls her and like, do you not realize that he's better than you for your money? Get it together. Go on to another scene. They're back at the apartment. The daughter-in-law's narrating and sort of saying that was not the end of it. So there's some other crap that's about to transpire. Let's see. So again, it's at night at the apartment. They are in the bed and his mom calls. The son looks very visibly upset as he picks up the call with his mom. Mom, what is it? Did they steal your money again? Like, what is it? He's like, the daughter-in-law is sleeping in the room with a little baby. They have like a little baby under 1 year old. They have a baby that's disrespectful. So he listens to whatever his mom said, telling her about these men, and he just gets mad and starts throwing stuff around the house. Then the wife starts narrating that every time the mom calls and she deals with these issues, he gets very violent, screams, yells, throws stuff, like hit things. I'm assuming that he's just very frustrated. One, that he's in that situation where he has to protect this woman. But then she keeps on getting with men who are abusive. The reason why they got a divorce, probably, I'm assuming that that father was probably abusive too. So then it skips to another day, one evening. The wife is just kind of like sat, in the living room. Husband gets up, gets a phone call. Who is it? Mom. Because he has no friends or life outside of mom, apparently. So he picks up, what? Somebody stole your money again? He just like starts going crazy and like yelling, right? At some point in time, you have to be able to cut it off and be like, you know what? You keep on
enough
in
is
this
enough.
situation, like you need to help yourself, but like I cannot. But he doesn't do that. He starts getting real crazy. So the wife takes the baby and like goes into another room, right? She don't want the baby to see the dad like screaming in his clothes and stuff. Una goes and grabs his arm and is like, please, stop. Like you can't continue to do like this, and your son also will have to grow up seeing a father being abusive and like angry and stuff all the time too. And then there will be no difference between you and your dad. Now it looks like he's started taking that anger on her. He like hit her and stuff like that, and that's horrible. So basically she's like, look, if you can't get control of this, then basically I'm gonna have to divorce you. And then he's like,
hello, Norian.
what's wrong with me? I make good money. I've never cheated on you or anything like that. Like, why would you divorce? No. Like, you don't realize that, like, making good money, like, it's not enough. Like, you have to have good character. So then she sort of ends off her story by saying, she's been diagnosed with, like, panic disorder and lots of anxiety.
Of course.
So she has to live, with him.
PTSD of
and she called in
that traumatized me having to listen to that story.
Basically, we kind of find out that she's just very scared and like afraid of him. And she says another situation, like for example, something with his mom. I needed to get my mom, like maybe $4,000 for something. But they were in the car, and it was like a 10-lane big freeway that they were on. And she was like, oh, I don't think we can afford to give your mom like $4,000. Lands on the race like a 10-lane highway. So then she was like, okay, let's just give your mom the money. But we find out more from here that she's just very like afraid of him. So for these last 2 or 3 years, she's just been doing everything that he wants, everything the way that he wants, to sort of avoid the violence.
Sad.
But the reason why she sent in her thing and called to the show is because Young Tae-jin is there and he's a therapist, and so she's sort of asking him like, hey, is there a way I can get him to therapy? And like, what can we do about this? Young Tae-jin is like, look, girl, if somebody doesn't want to go to therapy and don't think that they have a problem, there's a 0% chance that we're going to heal this person. You guys need to split up, get a divorce.
Yeah.
Everybody on this panel and in the comments.
I agree. Get that divorce.
What do you think? I'm pretty sure you agreed to it.
Oh, hell yeah, because that mom is out of line. Son, too.
She said it's been about 2 years, and actually it was a situation with the baby where he sort of pushed the baby really hard. The baby fell back and knocked their head on the wall.
Miss, that's going to
So they
divorce.
were like, oh, so nothing's happened for 2 years. And so the divorce lawyer was like, if something only happened 2 years ago, it could be really hard to get a divorce. didn't have evidence. It's been 2 years without incident, so they're very unlikely to grant you a divorce in that case. So you need to like collect evidence of stuff now to get that to submit for a divorce. And so that's just crazy. But
That
anyway,
is
I'm not gonna
freaking
reinforce it.
insane.
But the saddest part about this, when she said she would always talk to her mom and ask her mom, like, hey, you know, I'm in this situation, you know, I really want a divorce. And she said her mom just told her to stick it out. The one thing that he also said, like for everybody for future,
My mouth is tired
reference,
of
if you're with a
dropping,
partner
honestly.
and they like seem to not be able to control their anger in dating, don't even risk it. Like if they explode on you and something like that, like those people, unless they have a come to Jesus moment and get therapy, it's very likely that after marriage it's gonna like get even worse, and then these situations where they are sort of abusive to you. So if you see any signs of abuse, that's just
Run.
so they just end off with the lawyer giving her some tips by saying to use recordings, like put your phone in your pocket and keep it on, and then ask, you know, your mom-in-law and husband about these things to sort of like get some voice evidence of them talking and having these conversations, and then you'd be able to use those as evidence in court to get away from this man. But girl, you got to get away from this man.
Yeah, get away from both of them. It's crazy.
I cannot with this story. I cannot. And it's so heartbreaking that there's a kid that has to do that. Luckily, the kid, I think now is probably like 3, so still kind of young. So maybe if she does get out of this situation and like heal, then maybe for the rest of the early childhood, like the kid can sort of be in a safe environment. But oh, that's just horrible. I've been literally watching this show so much. There's so many crazy stories, not even just like in-law related stories, but just like so many crazy like cheating stories and like family betrayals and stuff. It is the tea. If you guys want me to do more videos like this, let me know. I don't know, this is my first time trying. I hope it comes out well. Fingers crossed. I hope that you guys like it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this video, like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I love you. Some people call this TikTok. Like me on Facebook, and I will Moon Kabi, Gabby Moon. She's a Korean model and TV personality. She's considered to be very exotic by Korean people because she's tan and she wears like a Western sort of baddie style of makeup. On November 22nd, like this past November 22nd, she posted a video on her Instagram that would set the country ablaze with discourse about single moms. And then Chung Woo-sung, who is a Korean A-list actor, he's 51, so handsome, charitable, rich. A management company posted that was in fact his baby. And to add fuel to the fire, he went on to say that no, he does not plan on marrying this girl. However, he will take on all of his fatherly duties. People were like, what? How dare you not marry this woman? You need to take responsibility for that baby by marrying the mom. So as you know, Korea is a very conservative society based on old Confucian values. So the rate of single mothers is very low. As of this year, the amount of births born to single-parent homes was only 4.7%. And if you compare that to the OECD average, which is 41.9%, the number one nation with the most babies born out of wedlock is actually France at a little over 60%. But anyway, so 4.7% is really low. And what's crazy is that is an all-time high for Korea. Just 5 years ago, it was only 2.2%.
They not having kids in Korea.
Has a baby out of wedlock, it becomes the talk of the town. So that prompted me to want to get into a video and talk about single parenting in Korea, laws that are in place, what people think about it, how views are changing,
Why
etc.
is this
Let's
track?
get into single moms in Korea.
That's why it's breaking. It's getting stuck.
So as I mentioned in a previous video, the older generation, like my in-laws age people, were born right after the Korean War. So their value system is like they're still living in the Joseon dynasty. Whereas the young people nowadays, like my husband and whatnot, they sort of grew up in an era that is modern society. So there's a huge range of discourse happening about this topic. The old people still hold the belief that if you get someone pregnant in a relationship,
You gotta marry
take
them.
responsibility by marrying the person. The young people are saying, wait a minute now, Chung Woo-sung was not even dating this girl, they just sort of hooked up. Now, he already had a girlfriend, so cheating ass, shame on you for that. But why would you marry a woman that you wasn't in a relationship with just because they have a kid? So that spectrum of belief is very wide, but the thing is, most of the law lawmakers are older people who hold those old Confucianist values. So a lot of laws haven't quite caught up to modern society, and some of them have only recently started changing. I'll give you an example. In Korea, there's something called the Poju system, and if you're somebody who learns Korean, you know that Poju means Australia, the land down under, the sheets, when you have it, babies out of wedlock. But yes, it's called the Hoju system, and in that system, if you're a woman, then on your family registry, you can only be registered under a man. Until you're married, you're in your dad's family registry. After you get married, you move to your husband's family registry. And if you guys have kids, the kids will always stay under the husband's family registry. Even if you get a divorce and you have full custody of the kids, you can't be your own family with those kids. It was male-centered. Very confusion. Or if you're a single mom and you have kids, you can't really register them under yourself, so they would have to stay under your parents. And in some cases, because of the stigma associated with it, the grandparents would just sort of register the kids as their own. But that Hoju system only changed in 2008, 4 years before I came to Korea. It was so recent. And just in general in Korea, it is hard for single moms to get certain aid that they need. There's just a lot of older laws that are set up strictly around their being mother and father. I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I am someone who's very more conservative myself. You know, obviously I got married before I had kids, and the first man I ever even lived with was my husband. So in that sense, I am more conservative on that issue. But I do think that single moms should not be excluded from the benefits that the government is offering. So recently they've sort of done things to help sort of change that, but there's still some people, especially in smaller regions, that can still have that issue when they go to the government office. I noticed that in Korea there's a huge stigma that people have, where I'm not someone who thinks we should just be all out willy-nilly promoting everyone being a single parent. I think America is too far. Like, we should not have songs about my baby daddy, my baby mama. That should not be something that's glorified. Even it seems like, I feel like sometimes it seems like it's glorified, and I think that's an issue, because we all know that children do better when they're in stable environments with two parents who are emotionally, mentally stable, and a good emotionally, mentally stable relationship. However, I think if you found yourself in a situation where that is not the case, I don't think that you should be stigmatized and your life should be made more difficult than it already would be, especially in a society like in Korea. The stigma is so big that recently in 2003, it was discovered that there's an issue in society, the issue of ghost babies. So in Korea, when you have a baby, it's not automatically registered anywhere. You have up to a month to register your baby. Prior to 2023, hospitals were not required to notify the government. So essentially, you have a baby, you take it home, it's not registered anywhere. And one of the reasons for that is because a lot of people don't name the baby until after birth. Some people are very superstitious still, and they take the baby's birth date and time, and they go to like a fortune teller, and they give you some names that are considered to be good for your baby, so your baby can have a good, prosperous life. And that culture even exists amongst adults. Like, my trainer that started training me when I started doing like bodybuilding competitions at first, she recently, just a couple years ago, went to a fortune teller, and they told her that her name and her son's name are not good for this. So she went and changed her name and her son's name. But so it's up to you as a parent to go to the government office and submit the documents, etc. Well, in Korea, because being a single mom is so stigmatized, there are women who are having babies and just not registering them. These are the ghost babies. In 2023, they found 2 babies in a woman's freezer in her Seoul apartment. And around that same time, they found a baby's body buried on a mountain. The government became frantic, you know, rightly so, and they went and started looking and seeing how many ghost babies there were. So last year, 2023, they found that there were 2,236 babies that were ghost babies. And unfortunately, out of those 2,000 babies, 200 they found were murdered, and they found 1,000 of them who were dropped off in baby boxes. There's a documentary about baby boxes.
That's so sad.
I literally never really cried when I watched stuff, but I cried when I watched the baby box. I'll link it down below if you want to watch it, but it's just like churches and stuff like that. They literally have a box downstairs, and if you give birth to a baby,
that's so sad.
like, you just go put your baby in that box, and then it rings, and then one of the church people comes down and gets the baby, and they sort of have a nursery, and they take care of these babies. 99% of these babies are from single moms, but there's still over 1,000 babies that have not been found and accounted for. And this is just sort of in the city area. So you gotta think, what about small country areas, small country towns? We found so many ghost babies that they don't even know about. That's so sad and unfortunate. So in order to combat, ghost babies, they sort of started changing the law and passing new laws. And one of them now is that if a baby is born at a hospital, the hospital is required to notify the government. This was after I had my kid, but even still during this course of creating this law, people were murdering. They were like, do you realize that if you make it when the government has to be notified of these babies, the women probably will try to have a birth on their own and not even go to the hospital, which is put more people in danger. So they sort of made it live kind of enough.
This is what happens when men are in charge of those type of decisions.
It sort of also sparks the
They
conversation.
don't think.
Should we also be looking at maybe a core issue? So as Korea is dealing with new issues, I think
With issues with women, men won't ever understand it.
But anyway,
so I don't know why they keep trying to pass
based
laws
on the
and
comments
stuff.
that Jung Woo-sung was getting,
So
people have
annoying.
started debating in comments and whatnot, and I wanted to share with you some of the things that people were debating about and some of the ways that I think Korean society might change a little bit in the future. So the first thing that people were upset about was when they found out that Jung Woo-sung actually had a paternity test. People were saying, 아이한테 미안하지 않아? Like, are you not sorry to your kid? Did you denying your kid? And it seemed like it was very much old people versus young people on all of these issues, but the young people were saying, well, he wasn't in a relationship with this girl, and plus he already had a partner. He's not married, he has a girlfriend. I guess he's a perpetual bachelor type, and he just slept with this woman just a few times. So obviously there could be questions of paternity. It's something that you have to be very sure on, and I think it just benefits the kid in the long run to get a paternity test, because I'm sure Jung Woo-sung's family members too would probably feel sort of questionable. Are you sure this is your kid? So I don't know. I think when it comes to issues of paternity, if there's even a 0.00001 doubt that you're feeling in your heart, it will come out in the way you interact with that kid. So I think something
It's
as
good
serious
to
as
get.
paternity, I think for sure.
Paternity should be done at the hospital. So that way, a man wouldn't be raising someone else's child for years and can't get his money back. So I agree with that. DNA at birth, before the birth certificate is signed, yeah, I'm for that. Okay, so
for the sake of your child. And just, some of the older people saying, no matter how much the times are changing, Korea's tradition and public sentiment must be kept righteous. But then you have sort of the younger people who are saying, perhaps a better society is one that accepts and respects such differences without judgment. Other people are saying, to assume that simply having a child obligates people to marry and take on the duties of cohabitation and mutual support.
I got this.
Suffocating.
And
that
I want
sort
to
of
use
brought
it.
up discourse amongst people, sort of talking about the traditional values of marriage and how it hasn't really made anyone happy. People are saying that they watched their parents, sort of struggle in these difficult marriages. I made a video about why marriage is difficult in Korea before. Just talking about some of the traditional culture of things of marriage. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. It'll give you so many more detail. And also, it's definitely one of the reasons why so many young people are against marriage nowadays. But other arguments that are being made are, people are saying that it's bad for kids to be born, out of wedlock, which I agree that it's not as good as being in a stable environment. However, people are saying, look at us. Back in the day, my husband's age of people, most people that we know nowadays had both moms and dads who stayed married, didn't divorce, but Korea is dealing with so much, depression, people even taking their own lives, being very unhappy. So if being just with a mom and dad and your parents not getting divorced meant that you would be happy, then be happy in Korea, but we're not. What some people are saying. So should we redefine what we think of family and what we think about birth and, child rearing? Some people are arguing that we should just separate the two. And they're saying Europe overall has higher rates of people, having children out of wedlock, but they seem to be doing much better than, us. I'm speaking from an American point of view. They have even higher rates of children born out of wedlock than we do in America, but they're considered to be, the happiest countries in the world. Some people are saying clearly happiness isn't defined, by rigid family structures. And people are saying they don't think that two people who are not in a relationship and don't even match well should get married for the sake of kids, because the center of a marriage and a family should be the husband and wife, not the kid. So there's a really interesting video that I watched on this topic, because there's a lot of videos on this topic, but it's from Anan Penosa, that Korean lawyer. She's just talking about 출산과 결혼의 분리. We should separate marriage and child childbirth from being together. One of the things that she said in her video was that she knows a lot of people who just want to cohabitate and they don't want to go under the institution of marriage in Korea just because it's so rigid. And these days, I've sort of been seeing this type of stuff nowadays in Korea. I think there's a growing amount of people who sort of think this way. So in the video that the lawyer did, she said that the legal definition in Korea of marriage is 육체적 and 정신적 결혼. So that's the coming together of two bodies physically through, sex, and then also mentally and emotionally coming together. And the mentally and emotionally coming together involves 애정, which is affection, and 신뢰, which is trust. And I'm going to throw in respect too, because I think that's very important. She said there's nowhere in that legal definition doesn't say you have a kid, so that's where the marriage starts. And she says in her video that without any of those things that are mentioned, that you don't really have a marriage. How can you be happy if you don't trust one another, if there's no affection, if you're not mentally attached, you don't have any sort of attachment with this person, like you can't be happy. The child is not what can be bringing the people together to sustain the marriage. You were together in a relationship as husband and wife, you became one, and from that relationship you have children, but your children grow up, they go off and live their life, and the person who you're with for life is your partner. You and your partner having a good, stable, mature relationship based on mutual respect and support is the situation where you should have a kid. It's not the other way around. And being the lawyer that she is, she said that she's had so many cases of people where they just accidentally had an oops baby, or there were a couple who were always fighting and they were like, let's break up, but then a month later the woman calls and is like, oh my god, like I'm pregnant. And those people who have no business being together decide that they want to be together, and then they get together. She's like, it's very rare that people wind up being happy. Like there are some cases where people wind up being happy and work out everything and it's great, but she said in most cases it ends in divorce, or the people are not happy. There's always a tension between them. Kids grow up and they can feel that. It reminds me of something I saw with this program I watched called 결혼 지옥, like marital, and it takes like a husband and wife who have issues, and it follows them around, and the main sort of psychologist person will go in to like help them figure out the issues that they're having in their relationship. And this was a story, a case of boyfriend and girlfriend. They were probably on the verge of breaking up, but the woman wound up getting pregnant, and so they thought, oh, if we're pregnant, we should take responsibility and just get married and have the marriage based on the kid. But somehow the daughter figured that out. The daughter is 9 years old. And so one day when the daughter was sitting at the table with the mom, because the mom and dad's relationship is not that good, she was like,
가끔씩 내가 이런 생각이 들 때가 있어. 내가 태어나서 이런 거구나 이렇게 하는 생각.
and this is the first time I was about to cry when I saw something, because this little girl feels guilty for existing. And I've also heard of so many cases of people in Korea like sharing things like that. Children sort of know if mom and dad are not really on the same page. And I've heard even at my old job that I had here, one of the people said that her and her husband's relationship is not good. They talk to each other when they speak to you. And so the daughter just came up to her and asked, like, why are you with dad if you don't love him? You don't love him, right? That really negatively impacts the kid. So it's not just having a marriage that means that the kid will be stable. It's two people who actually are having a relationship together, who are mature enough, who love and support one another and respect one another. Anyway, back to the lawyer video. I previously also, when I was younger, thought, oh, well, I guess it's just better to be married than to not be married. But then as time goes on and being in Korea and seeing marriages where the parents' relationship is not good, the kid is anxious all day. Every time mom and dad have a negative interaction, it makes kids very anxious.
Yeah.
So in some cases, I think it's definitely better for the people to just split. And yes, the kid will hurt for that time being, but if both people are happy on their own, then that anxiety that they deal with every day sort of wanes. One good point that she brought up in the video was that you do need to also have a bit of your own life in there, even if that's just, the relationship that you have with your partner. If your reason for existing is just the kids, then there's some negative side effects that it can have. You can become a helicopter parent, and we know helicopter parenting is not good. And there's also this sort of phenomenon that we kind of have in Korea, which is where parents who stayed in marriages that they didn't want to stay in for the kids, once the kids grow up, they sort of feel like they want the kids to pay them back somehow, right? I raised you and I stayed in this relationship because of you. Now you gotta do something to pay me back. So even in adulthood, they're constantly trying to pay their parents back because they sort of feel guilty. That's something that I've heard happens a lot here. And some people are saying that if, society sort of changed its stigma on people being unmarried and having babies, that it could help to increase the birth rate. Because as I mentioned earlier, there are people who don't want to be stuck under the old traditional Korean marriage institution, the birth rate could improve by people, not actually being married, but being in long-term stable relationships and having children that way. So what do I personally think? I personally think that before you have kids, you should be in a place where you're mentally mature enough and you know enough about yourself to select, and you've overcome any trauma you've had. You've gone to therapy to get out of any unhealthy relationship cycles you might be stuck in, and to be healthy enough to choose a good long-term partner who also is mature, who you can respect and work everything out with. And whether or not you two decide that you want to actually go the route of a legal marriage, or if you just want to just live together, then I think two people like that should be the people who have kids, in my personal opinion. Especially in a place like Korea where getting a divorce is really difficult. I also made a video about why it's difficult to divorce in Korea, yet divorce rates are sky high. And I think if you do look at Europe and places like that, yes, people are living out of wedlock, but they're still partners and they're still fathers in the children's life. I think they do both need a mom and a dad who's in a good, stable, healthy relationship. But I do realize that we are living in a modern times, and there are people who go out and do these things and sleep around. And I do think that on the off chance that something like that happens and you do have a child and maybe you don't particularly believe in abortion, there should be a little bit of help and support, and not such a negative stigma, because I think that negative stigma that people have on those kids, especially at school here, you could be like bullied and sort of ostracized if people were to find out something like that. I do think that it would be good if those were to change. And if those stigmas ever do change, please don't become like America and be out here promoting being baby mamas and having songs about it. That's too far. Okay. And I think I also take this stance because I feel like it's not the child's fault. Like, no child asked to be born. But I do think if you are born, you should be given, the best chance at success in life. Your birth shouldn't be stigmatized, in your society. Because that's gotta have so many more negative impacts on a kid, So I do wish in Korea there was more of a let's all embrace this kid and figure out ways in society that we can help them to grow up happy and healthy. And I feel like there isn't really that yet. But anywho, I wish Chung Woo-sung and Gabby Moon the best. He seems pretty happy. He's going to take on the financial responsibility and help with the baby and whatnot. So I wish them nothing but the best. And I hope that people stop, attacking them online. When the child grows up, if people find out who the child is, please, I hope that they are not attacking this child or making fun of them and stuff like that, because that would be horrible. What do you guys think in the comments below? What experiences have divorce, the splitting of a couple who vowed to be with one another until it's not to be taken lightly, especially because the divorce process is a nightmare. Two people who were once in love start fighting brutally over the possession of their assets, money, custody of the kids, etc. And this process is especially brutal in Korea, where there is no fault divorce. You have to prove in a court of law why your marriage ended, and they might not even approve the divorce, so you gotta bring the big guns when you're in divorce court. You really gotta throw your partner under the bus and prove why they are unfit to be a spouse. And you really gotta sell it that this marriage cannot go on, because you don't want them to not approve the divorce. And Korea is one of the hardest places in the world to get a divorce. But despite that, divorce is on the rise. In Asia, Korea toggles between first and second place for the amount of divorces. So today we're going to talk about some reasons why Korean people divorce, what groups of people are getting divorced, and why Korea is one of the hardest places in the world to get a divorce. Hello friends and family, this is Megan Moon, aka Charlie the Big and I just want to tell you that my Korean skincare is back on sale. You get a full skincare set, cleanser, toner, serum, and cream for $56 and free international shipping. This offer will be going on until December the 8th. You don't want to miss out, because we won't be offering it again until next year in May. All the information will be down below. So there are 3 types of divorce in Korea. The first one is 합의-이혼, which is divorce by agreement. Agreed. It is kind of the most simple one. Basically, most people realize, you know what? This relationship is not for us. Let's end it. They agree on everything, and then they just go down to the local office, fill out some paperwork, and then basically it's done. You do have to come back 1 to 3 months later to fill out some more stuff. But if there's even one thing that you can't agree on, how you're going to divide the custody or the money, etc., then there is another type of divorce, 조정이혼. which is divorce by mediation. That is where you go before court appointed people and have sort of a mediation session, and they help you to decide on the division of assets, childcare, etc. But even if through this mediation process things cannot get figured out and you want some kind of compensation for all the hardships that your partner put you through in marriage, then you gotta go to court. You gotta go to a divorce by trial. People also have to do divorce trials when only one person wants the divorce, because you cannot do an agreement divorce if only one person wants the divorce. There are only 6 legal grounds for divorce in Korea. So if your case doesn't fit one of these 6 reasons for divorce, even if you want a divorce but your partner doesn't, then it will be impossible to do a divorce by trial. So the 6 legal grounds for divorce in Korea are adultery. And the next one is when one party has left the matrimonial home without either a good reason or the consent of the other party. And the next one is any sort of mistreatment that you receive from a spouse or anyone in their family. Also, if your spouse mistreats your parents, then you can divorce them. The 5th legally recognized reason for divorce is when your spouse has just disappeared and their location has remained unknown for at least 3 years. This one, I was like, 3 years? That's a long time. Like,
What if you want to get
as a
remarried?
husband and wife, if your spouse disappeared even 6 months without any contact from you, I think they're either dead or it's pretty clear that they don't want to have anything to be done with you. And the 6th one just says, in the case of any other grave cause, making the continuation of the marriage impossible. So it has to be something that they deem to be very serious. So your reason for divorce has to fall underneath one of those 6 legally recognized reasons. And there are some situations that I see like on Korean TV where lawyers are saying this is not grounds for divorce, but if I was in that situation, I would want to get a divorce. So I'm like, damn, you can't even divorce somebody for this. For example, recently there was a case that I saw on JTBC on Sakon Panjang. There was a man, he got married, and in Korea it's common for a lot of women still who don't really want to work. So as soon as they get married, they're like, I'm gonna be a housewife, even before children are had. And it's also very common for the women to manage the money in the household. So after 4 years of being married, he never actually checked at all. He just sort of trusted that she was doing the right thing and saving up money. 2 people living well below their means in a small apartment making $8,000 a month, you'd expect that there would be tens of thousands of dollars saved up. They were considering having a baby and they wanted to move into a bigger house. So he asked the wife, hey, how much money have we saved up? And she was like very hesitant. How much money do you think was in that bank account?
Nothing.
742 won. He found out that she was sending the money to her. During this time that they've been married for 4 years, her and her mom went on many trips together, and she told her husband that her mom owns a building, so whenever we went on these trips, my mom was paying for it. But it turns out he was paying for all the trips that she went on with her mom. She was giving her mom
need
a monthly
some milk.
allowance of like a couple $1,000s, and also paying for her mom's rent. And then also we found out that the mother was working, but after her daughter got married, the mom quit the job too. They both quit at the same time, and were like, okay, we're just gonna live off of the husband. The other
Damn.
shitty thing is, she didn't want him giving money to his family. This woman,
What?
he found the wrong one. And what's crazy is that the lawyer on this show said that
Listen, I have no problem with you helping your mom and stuff, or him helping my mom, but we both have to know about it.
Under one of the 6 legally
Like
recognized
what?
reasons for divorce. So literally it just depends on convincing your partner that you should get a divorce, so they allow you to get an agreement divorce. But if not, then you can't. And when you do these divorce by trial, everything
Let's
that you
get
say
real
about your partner,
closer.
you have to have evidence. And this is what I heard is hard for some people. Let's say you found out that your partner is cheating, you confronted them right away. A lot of people don't have the patience to wait to gather evidence. They sort of confront their partner right away, but then their partner is going to delete all the evidence. So you can't just go to court and say, yeah, they cheated without any evidence. And also, depending on how you gathered the evidence, you may or may not get a fine. For example, if you just go into your partner's phone without their knowledge and look, you want to take screen captures of that and use it in court. If you went in someone's phone, you will be fined and get in trouble for going through someone's phone, spouse or not. So from the stories I heard, people typically get their evidence by black boxes in the car. So in Korea, when you have a car, it's required that you have a black box, which is a
Like the
camera
plane.
that sees everything that you
Girl,
see,
I
and
love
also
the
records
story.
audio of inside of the car.
Crazy.
If you're new to my channel and you don't know my skincare routine, let's go over it. First, I use a green tea enzymatic powder wash. Just put a little in your hand, mix it with some water. You only need a little bit. And it's great because it contains baking soda. It will clean out your pores without stripping your
These
skin.
Korean
It really
parents
cleans and makes the skin so
are
smooth. It's
freaking
pH balanced and
crazy.
great for all skin types. Green tea is a powerful antioxidant for the skin. It helps with anti-aging and also helps with inflammation. I am from Rice Toner. It contains rice extract. I like to apply toner with my hand, and this helps to add luster to the skin and also helps to repair your natural skin barrier. I'm from Freshly Juiced Vitamin C Drops. It's a powerful antioxidant. It helps with anti-aging and also helps to smooth and even out skin tone. So it's really good if you have acne scars. And also helps to minimize the pores. Vitamin E.
These Korean moms
It's
crazy.
interesting because it has a nice pudding texture, and the thing about vitamin E is that it actually enhances the effects of vitamin C. Your skin gonna love it. It brightens the skin, prevents aging, and helps your skin to become more firmer and hydrated. Ooh, look at that. So firm, so radiant, so nice. I've been using this for so many years, and I've yet to find a combination that I think works better on my skin. And so many of you guys love this skincare too, which is why we put on this sale every November and May. What a steal for 4 amazing skincare products. So make sure you don't miss out. When it comes to custody of the kids, one thing that's different that I've heard from, like, let's say in America, is that child support is capped at a certain amount. So the most amount of money that you could get for child support would be 2,660,000 won, which would be like 2,000 US dollars. And that's only if the combined income of the two is more than 9 million won a month, which is like, 8,000 US dollars. And that's when the child is from age 15 to 18. And also one thing that I heard is that here, a lot of people in divorce court, when it comes to custody of the kids, will actually fight to not get custody of their kids. That was something that actually shocked me. Raising kids in Korea is really hard. It's really freaking hard. So like parents go out to work, they're gone all day. Basically, they come home late in the evening to one of the
They fight
in-laws
to not
who's
have
taking care of the
custody
babies all
of
day
the
and has gotten
kids.
dinner ready and is basically doing everything in the house. What a lot of people realize is that if they get a divorce, then they will have to take care of the kid on their own, and it can be very difficult. So one of the divorce lawyers said that people will be like, they're a horrible person, I want to get a divorce, but they're such a good parent, and they literally will try and prove why that other person is a better parent than they are. They're really good parents. Obviously, those cases probably exist everywhere, but I've heard it talked about more here, especially because when you have kids and you try and get remarried, it can be much harder for you. So there's so many cases of people after a divorce sort of pretending like they don't have kids. I don't have a kid. Not even telling their new spouse that they were even married before or had kids before. A growing part of the population have actually sort of started to accept divorce, like, it could happen. And now one thing that I've heard is like, let's say you're unhappy in your marriage and you tell your parents. The parents will say, hey, then you can get a divorce, I'll help you. Whereas even in just a previous generation, if you told your parents you wanted to get divorced, they might be like, what? Stick it out. So in society, people are getting a little bit more comfortable with divorce. And that's why we're seeing one of the biggest groups that's having a big increase in divorce is actually the 50, 60-year-olds. I made a video before about why marriage in Korea is hard, especially because of a lot of the old Confucian values. The 50, 60-year-olds now, their culture was so different even just one generation ago that most of those people seem to be very unhappily married. But now that their kids are all grown and married, they sort of feel like, well, why am I going to stay in this relationship that sucks? And then if you are a divorcee, it's more acceptable now and you have an easier time getting remarried. Whereas before, if you had been divorced before, no chance of ever getting remarried again. A lot of older people are sort of using divorce as a way to sort of bring them some kind of happiness in life. And also, as I mentioned in the previous video, there's a lot of cheating amongst the older people. Men over the age of 50 cheat at a rate between 50 and 60%. So that's a big amount. So amongst the older people, 42.5% of them get divorced because of cheating, whereas amongst the younger people, the newlyweds, 21.3%. But the other biggest group of people to get divorced and are at most risk of divorce are actually the newlyweds, people who've been married for 4 years and under. And amongst the newlyweds, the biggest reason for divorce is just marked as personality differences at a rate of 40.9%. So in Korea, when you do the divorce by agreement and you fill out the paperwork, there's a box that you have to check, reason for the divorce. And the one that they just all click is just personality differences. But within those personality reasons, a lot of lawyers and therapists sort of speak about the certain issues that newlyweds are facing in Korea. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So there are 4 major reasons why newlyweds were getting divorced that I found: parents, money, chores, and childcare. So one of the biggest things that newlyweds fight about is the amount of visits that you have to the in-laws' house. And it tends to blindside a lot of women, but let's say the boyfriend's not living with the parents, and maybe he goes to see his parents on holidays. Suddenly, after marriage, it's like, oh, now that we're married, let's go see my parents once a month. And in very extreme cases, I've heard of it being like once a week. And that's because there's this thing for like Korean men where after marriage, where it's like, okay, now that I'm married, I have to do something for my parents. And that takes the form of visiting or giving a monthly allowance. So they feel like there's some sort of responsibility they have to their parents. In dating, it's not really something that they brought up or discussed. It's just something where right after marriage, they're like, okay, now let's go to my parents' house. And she's like, what are we doing at your parents' house? Fight. Especially because in a lot of cases, it doesn't go the opposite way. That's something that a lot of therapists are saying that Korea really needs. It's like, whatever we do for the husband's family, we do the same thing for the wife's family. Equally. To some people, they still have that traditional mindset where the husband's family is the one that we focus on. Women are saying, for what reason do your parents deserve all of this attention, etc.? What therapists suggest is that however many times you visit the husband's family, you should visit the wife's family. So there are some people who every month go visit both families. You're also required for every birthday to go and have meals with the parents, especially in cases of mother-in-laws. They want to go to your house and you as a daughter-in-law have to cook for her. Then women are sort of saying, well, my husband's not cooking for my parents, so why am I cooking for your parents? Like, we're not, like, you know, this is modern day. And there's one phenomenon called ambujana, which means you calling to check in on your in-laws. A lot of mother-in-laws sort of require that their daughter-in-law call them every once in a while. On the extreme end, I've heard of cases where it's like every 2 to 3 days. So a lot of people are saying now,
this is annoying me.
Get rid of that culture. Like, what's up with that? So because we're sort of in this like shifting period where the people who are traditional are like very traditional, and then you have some people who are like sort of in between. Then you have some people who don't want to do any of the traditional stuff. But then like before marriage, they don't really talk about what kind of culture they want to have after they get married. So it causes a lot of issues. So there's been some sort of education for the mom-in-law, so people sort of know that you shouldn't behave that way. There hasn't really been that for the wife's side of the family. So there's so many cases of people getting divorced because of the wife's family over interfering and stuff like that too. But also a lot of people fight when it comes to the monthly allowance for the parents. After you get married, you're a full adult now, so you gotta pay your parents back. There's some people who don't believe in giving your parents monthly allowance or whatever, but there's still a lot of people who do. That's something that the couples will sort of fight about too, especially if you're trying to get more money to one side than the other. And that's sort of why a lot of people have decided not to get married nowadays. People don't want to deal with the culture and the things that come with it. So I've heard that a lot of people are just opting to live together, like without getting married, because if you don't actually get married, then the old people feel like they can't really interfere in the marriage. The next big thing that a lot of couples fight about and get divorced over is chores. So I mentioned in the previous video, but when you look at worldwide statistics of men doing household chores in Korea, in the world they came in dead last. On average, men were doing 45 minutes of housework a day, but when you look at the OECD average, it averages 139 minutes of housework a day per males. The next country that had the lowest level of men doing housework was India, and the men averaged doing 52 minutes of housework a day. 52 and that balance is really hard for couples to find. Not even a full hour. In most cases, both people were living with their parents until married, and even as an adult working, you go home, your mom has a meal cooked for you, she cleans everything. So people have never had to take on the responsibility of a whole house before. Oh, now we're responsible for everything in the house. We have to clean. We have to change the toilet paper roll. And that's difficult because you're doing it with someone else. We have to learn to live with it. Got it. So a lot of people, that difficulty that they feel being out of their parents' house, they sort of attribute with marriage. And a lot of people find it to be too hard. So the next biggest reason that I heard that a lot of people get divorced in newlywed stage is people having debt and not actually telling their partner before marriage. Apparently this is a big thing. Every single video that I've watched, the one thing they say is there's a lot of cases of people not really disclosing their financial situation. Of course, you know, when you first get in a relationship, you try and put your good foot forward and you want to present yourself in a good light so they like you. Like, that's just a natural thing that people do. But I think in Korea it's like times 100. There's more of a pressure to have people really like you, so people go above and beyond to get people to like them. But by doing that, sometimes they don't present themselves in a very honest way. And I think when you are getting married, you need to both present yourself in an honest way. And then they're like, oh no, you scammed me. So they have this thing where they call it like 사기 결혼, like this is a scam marriage. I've heard cases of people acting like completely different people all through the dating phase, and then right after marriage, suddenly just changing completely opposite. I've also heard some really funny stories. There's this one lawyer who was talking, and they said the most interesting client that they had come said that everything was great, but on their wedding night, her husband just like took off his wig. Apparently, he's like bald.
He took off his wig
in the middle and just had like hair on the side.
Yeah, got it, girl.
And I'm not trying to make fun of people who are bald, but that's kind of something that you should disclose before you get married, along with other things. There's this
How do you not know your husband wears a wig? You don't touch his head?
Take couples who are thinking about getting divorced, and they pretend like they're sort of having a mediation, and they share like all the issues that they have. It's really fun. There was a story actually I watched like 2 days ago where this wife was saying, like, while we were dating, he showered a lot. Like, Korean people typically shower a lot, like twice a day. I think they shower too much, like Korean people sometimes. Cleanliness is something that's very important to me. He's like, yes, I'm very clean. I'm clean! Immediately after marriage, he's like, he stopped showering. Like, he would only shower like once a week. And he's like, yeah, I don't really like shower that much. It's like, why wouldn't you just be honest about that when we were dating before we got married? She was complaining that he don't even brush his teeth every day. I hid his toothbrush in a place where I knew he could not find it because I wanted to see how long it took him to go and ask him what his toothbrush is.
Oh my god.
2 weeks later, he went and said, hey, where's my toothbrush? He's like, 2 weeks he did not brush his teeth. But anyway, they shower a lot. Nobody is dirty here except for that man. Just showing you like how people will totally be like, yeah, I'm clean, I do this and that. And you're like, no, actually I'm not. Why are you lying? Now you're my person.
Why
Divorce is kind of hard.
lying?
So once you're here, now I can just like show who I really am. But it's like a little bit more extreme than what I'm used to hearing in America. One of the lawyers that I watched sort of summed it up in a great way and said, I think there's just a lack of conversation about certain things. And I think that's the biggest issue that's causing a divorce. And if you think about all the issues that I even just talked about, I think a lot of them stem from just a lack of having that conversation, especially because I think the cultural shift is happening. And that is all that I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Make sure you don't miss out on my Korean skincare sale. Again, it's only available till December the 8th. All the information will be down below. And if there's other topics that you want to talk about or things that you want to add to what I said down below, let me know, because obviously there's no way to know what to say every little thing. And if there's other topics you want me to talk about, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video and like to see more videos, please subscribe to my YouTube page down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, like me on Facebook, and I will see ya.
The man didn't like the shower. But he pretended he liked the shower and bathed twice a day because he wanted to marry her.
There's just a perception
That is so gross. You haven't brushed your teeth in 2 weeks?
Sort of changes when you get here.
Ugh.
Planning, purchasing, buying, the bunny. I'm just gonna say something different. Hello, friends and family. This is Megan Moon, aka Tell Them to Be Who Said. And I asked you guys on Instagram what talking videos you wanted me to have, and everybody's like, we want more crazy mom stories, relationship stuff, cheating stories, cheating in Korea. Seems like you guys are really into hearing about people's drama. I'm not judging because I am too. As long as it's not my own. Seems like most people ask me to talk about cheating in Korea and why there's so much cheating in Korea. So everyone
Clutch my pearls,
let's get into
girl.
why it seems like
Tell
there's
me
so
the
much
juicy
cheating in Korea,
story.
especially after adultery was decriminalized in 2015.
Grab my
There are
neck.
so many reasons, from PR, prostitution, being rampant. There's a lot of psychological issues, marital issues, and just a rise of sexless marriages that seems to be causing it. We're gonna get into all
Alright,
these
I
issues.
need.
But first, let's get started with.
Let's go over here. We gotta get the tags
1953, a law was
done.
put into place that criminalized adultery. It was punishable by up to 2 years in prison, and it was put in to sort of
Do it real
protect
quick.
wives, because at that time, especially most wives were housewives. They were very financially dependent on their husbands. You know, if a man went out and got someone else and sort of left her, like, what is she gonna do? But in 2015, it was sort of no longer deemed to be necessary. Like, women are working to a huge rise of, you know, women also cheating as well. But as soon as it was repealed, a lot of condom companies reported that their stock shot up by like 15, 20%, like immediately. So I guess there was a lot of people who were like, yes, let me go and sow my wild oats, waiting for that law to be repealed. So I wondered, you know, exactly how much cheating there is here. So I looked up the statistics. Now, obviously, statistics can never be 100% accurate, but they do give us a rough idea compared to other countries, etc. Need my notebook. So in Korea, it's been reported that about 53.7% of men over the age of 50 have slept with someone else other than their spouse, whereas only 9.6% of women have. I honestly think that number is a bit higher. I think especially amongst the older generation, women are supposed to be very demure, very mindful, very modest. So I think they probably underreported a lot because recently another sort of survey came out and it was reported that about 40% of women have stepped out and cheated on their partners. It was reported about 62% of men have also cheated on their partners. So again, we can never really fully know. And it's interesting because in Korea, the likelihood of cheating goes up with age, but just comparing Korea to the other countries, statistically, you know, in the U.S., apparently 23% of men have cheated in marriage, and about 13% of women have cheated in marriage. But on average, Korean men tended to have about 12 different partners that they cheated on their spouse with, whereas women have had about 4 on average different partners that they've cheated with. So why is that? You know, why are the rates so high? I've been scouring the internet about cheating in Korea from Korean media, news, etc. Obviously, there's no way to 100% know, but these are just the main things that I found. So one of the first reasons why a lot of people are saying there is a lot of cheating is just because of accessibility and ease with which people can cheat, simply because PR prostitution is very rampant in Korea. It's something that surprised the hell out of me when I first came. Because when you see Korean dramas, like, everything seems so innocent. Like, if you're watching a drama, the main, you know, male, female leads don't even kiss till like the second to last episode in the whole season. And you know, the fact that PORN is illegal here, there's just a perception that you have of Korea before you get here.
Wow.
That sort of changes when you get here. When I first came to Korea in 2012, I had some friends, Steph and Richard, who lived down in Suwon. And so I went to visit them at Suwon, and just from Suwon Station, literally over yonder, you could just see pink lights coming from an alleyway. They were like, oh yeah, that's the red light district down there. You want to go see it? And I was like, sure. We just walked down the street, and literally there's just glass, like you can see right from the subway station, an alleyway. It's just like a lot of shops.
Lila, hello, my love. How are you?
There's just a store.
How have you been? Let me see how much life I have on this too. Hi, Lila.
As time goes on, I run into less and less of those sort of red light districts. I think they're making
Wonderful. Good to see you.
You can go. There's the Nore Town, which are like the karaoke places you can go, the room salons, massage parlors. Like, so it's so much easier for people to step out on their marriage. There were some interesting statistics that came out, and that was about 40.5% of men in Korea viewed hiring a PR prostitute was not considered to be cheating, whereas 15% of women thought that it wasn't cheating, you know, if you paid for it. And in the same survey, about 56.1% of men admitted to paying for those type of services in their life, and apparently the average of the people.
My mouth's gonna drop and fly is gonna go in there because.
Something that they had done multiple times. So one of the reasons why it seems like so many men have partaken in paying for those kind of services is because a lot of business meetings or boss or like work sort of bonding dinners include going to the karaoke places or room salons, and there's apparently pressure from your superiors or your bosses to partake in those activities.
Wow.
But what happens a lot of time is the boss will
We
say,
are
hey, I'll pay
making
for
3
a
bags,
for you, which one you
almost
want.
2
And
down.
a lot of men feel a lot of pressure to go along with that, because if you
For
don't,
my
your superiors
one for
can
my
sort of
mom, one
harass
for
you
my
into
top
it.
customer.
And a lot of
that
people figure
always
that
shops
later
with
on,
me,
like if there's some sort of promotion or
and
anything
one
like that, then
for
they'll be looked over because they
a
didn't
godparent,
participate. But yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about foreign people being so
my
like
son's
shocked because their
godmother.
superiors or even their family members, their uncles, their whoever just
So I
saying, hey, let's go
finished
to
the
the
first
salon,
bag.
I'll do this, sort of talking
Looks
about
so
it so
cute for my
casually. I've
mom.
even heard stories of
I'm
people
working
having
on
to be the
my
one to like set
customers.
up these things for their boss to go to like take other clients out or to do whatever they do at like these meetings. And it's especially accessible because there are love motels everywhere on every corner. And love motels are exactly what it sounds like. You can rent out hourly and the fee is usually pretty cheap. But one thing you notice about love motels is when you go into the parking lot, there's always like these sort of curtains that are blocking the way, so when people get out of the car, you can't see their faces, and that's because people know that if people are going to Love Motel, it's typically not because they're going with
I put it on the wrong side. I have to remember, like, it's
can solicit
it's
elderly
so
people in
light.
parks. There's this phenomenon called the bakas ladies. And bakas is like this Korean energy drink that old people like. And so apparently in the parks, they will ask older gentlemen if they would like to buy some bakas. And then that's sort of how they started being called the bakas ladies. But these older women who sell their bodies are anywhere from 50s all the way up until 80s. Like I think the oldest woman who was caught for selling her body in one of the parks was about 84. And they typically center around an area called Jongno-gu. Apparently there used to be a lot of them in one park, maybe around 400, but then the police started cracking down on it a little bit.
I put it on the wrong
so it's
side,
estimated that maybe
Lila.
there are about 200
Darn it.
elderly women who are selling
Are
their
you
bodies
prepared
in
for
that park.
Christmas,
But basically,
Lila?
if you
Are you
older men and
ready?
Korean people know, where they can go
Christmas is
to
in
easily access
just a
that,
couple
and
of
it's
days.
very cheap too. Like the bakas ladies, their average fee is about 20 to 30,000 won, which is about like 18 to 27 USD. So not very expensive at all. There's even actually a movie called The Bakas Lady. And apparently it's a really good movie. It has a really good famous Korean actress in it. But it's just the story of a bakas lady, how she got into the situation of having to sell her body at the park. And it also highlights the sad reality of elderly poverty.
Yes.
Which I think is a totally another issue.
I can't
to
wait
go
for it to be
another
over
day.
and
I still
done
like
with,
to say
honestly.
it's quite accessible for men who want to cheat literally everywhere. So outside of accessibility, it seems like one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people turn to cheating is just the rise of sexless marriages. There's so much content these days, and it's one of the hot issues that a lot of psychologists and divorce lawyers and anybody who's just studying psychology or knows about it are talking about sexless marriages nowadays. It even has a slang term in Korean. They call it sexless bubu. So sexless is just sexless with a Korean accent, and then bubu means married couple. It always makes me giggle because bubu, in English. And then also, as a millennial that I am, when I was little, I watched Yogi Bear. Yogi Bear's sidekick's name is Boo Boo, and he's always like, hey, Boo Boo.
Hey, Boo
So
Boo.
anytime I say Boo Boo, it makes me giggle. The word Boo Boo means married couple. But sexless Boo Boo, it started like that, and then it actually got shortened to Lis Boo Boo. But apparently the rates of sexless marriages are a bit higher in Korea than they are in other parts of the world, about 10% higher. So I was watching a lot of videos about Lis Boo Boo and like what it is, but it seems like the main root of the issue is just really that lack of genuine connection and emotional connection in the marriages. It seems like a lot of people are lacking intimacy and the ability to really talk and share their emotions and talk about deep-seated issues that they're having. So I mentioned this in the video when I was talking about why marriage in Korea is hard. I mentioned how the previous generation didn't really allow their kids to speak up about things that made them uncomfortable, or they didn't really allow an environment for their kids to confide in
normally
things that were
in
bothering them.
certain
Whatever they did,
cities,
the parents
snow
would sort of
really
get
fall
angry.
in
So a lot of
January.
people learned to not really share their
Like
emotions
those
or
are
to
like
really
the
share like
snow
how they
day,
feel. And so it
snow
seems like over
time
time, a lot of
in
couples have
January,
drifted so far apart, but still don't
late
really know how to
December
go
to
about ending the
in
relationship to really
January,
get to
and
like
also up
what the
until
issues that
March
they have are. And it feels
if
like a
you're
lot of people
lucky.
here think that if they speak up about issues, then the person won't like them and then the relationship will crumble. But I think they don't really realize that not talking about issues is what makes the relationship crumble. And relationships fail because you're just sort of ignoring and sweeping all the issues under the rug instead of addressing and taking care of them. Just in general, overall, it doesn't seem like people really speak positively about marriage. People sort of have this attitude, well, there it is, you're married, you don't have a good relationship. It's normal. It seems like people just expect for marriages to not have good relationships, and people don't seem to have like those role models of couples that they aspire to be like, or who have good communication, who respect and understand one another, etc. That's one reason why some people in the younger generation are not really excited about marriage and not really wanting to do it. And I think because of the example from the previous generation, a lot of people don't even know that you can really put in that effort and work on a marriage and repair the relationship to sort of keep it alive. And it's so sad because a lot of people don't want to get divorced because of the stigma of divorce, although that's gone away and the divorce rates are skyrocketing. But there are more people who are learning about couples therapy and who are opting to do that to repair their relationship and get back on the same page. But it seems like a lot of people just think, well, this is life, this is how we live, I can't get a divorce, so what I'm gonna do? Find someone outside of this relationship that makes me feel happy. But there are some specific things I think that happen in Korean society that don't help couples to actually connect in the way that they need to. And I think the first one is just working hours. Like if you are working all day every day and you don't have time to sit down and connect. You know, so many people are just so tired, like after 12 hours of working. When the weekend comes, they just kind of want to be physically intimate with your partner is like the last thing on your mind. So a lot of people only really get to spend time together on the weekend. So there's a word for that in Korea. It's called 주말 부부. Just means 주말 means weekend. 부부, you know, means married couple. So weekend couple. They only see each other on weekends. So a lot of wives feel emotionally neglected from their husbands. So sometimes they could seek some sort of emotional support or connection outside of their relationship. So one of the biggest reasons that I've been hearing about these days as to why marriages eventually go down that road of becoming sexless is just because the qualities that people are looking for to get married in the first place don't allow for the deepening of the relationship. They tend to be very superficial. There's words that people say nowadays, like specs, they call it, as opposed to the quality of the relationship. Like, are they healed? How do they handle conflict? People tend to focus more on the superficial things here and how the person looks on paper when they get married. And apparently that's also fueled by the parents. In Korea, you have to have your parents' permission to get married. And a lot of the older generation born right after the Korean War is very gung-ho that everybody needs to be a doctor or a lawyer or some sort of profession, a judge, something like that. But I've heard of so many cases of women has a man that she really likes, feels connected to. Maybe they have a good quality relationship, but the specifications don't match up to what her parents want. Instead of having this kind of person, I just want to be able to say that my husband is a dentist, or the parents just want to be able to say my son-in-law, my daughter-in-law is a lawyer, is a whatever. It seems like people who marry for those sort of superficial reasons tend to not really end up being happy at all. And so those relationships tend to lead to the most cheating. And just skipping out of married people, talking about people who are unmarried, just like boyfriend and girlfriend status, one reason that I heard why there could be a lot of cheating is because a lot of people feel pressure to be in relationships in Korea. Not so much anymore. I feel like that part of it is changing a little bit, but a lot of people just don't want to be alone. And a lot of restaurants, if you go to in Korea, you can't just go as one person. Like the minimum purchase that you get is for 2 to 3 people, and it's one big dish and like a selection of side dishes that go along with it. And so a lot of people don't want to just be alone. So sometimes they hold on to relationships that maybe aren't the best for them, or they don't match, until they find someone else. A lot of psychologists have been talking about nowadays as to what keeps the couples from actually forming the bond that they need to have a long, continuous, happy marriage. It's just that they don't take the first 3 years to really bond with one another. And apparently that's something that's very important. Almost like it is for when you first have a new baby. They say the first 3 years is the most important time for building that bond and that secure attachment with the parents. So that's why they say if you're going to send your kid to daycare, it's better to do so after 3 years of life. Apparently in a marriage, the first 3 years are very important too. But the couple needs to take time to just decide how they're going to live, to match each other, to change certain habits that they need to change, to they learn how to talk to each other, they learn the things that make each other tick. Like it's the real one psychologist called it the golden time. And of course it doesn't mean you don't talk to anyone, only 2 of you hang out together, but that's the time where you need to sort of block and put up boundaries around family influences, emotionally separate from your parents and sort of get onto your partner. So you guys have a nice base foundation of marriage, you understand one another, you've created your own family environment, and then you start allowing the influences from outside. But apparently, you know, in Korea after marriage, especially because the laws tend to be very enmesh with their children, because they don't tend to allow that couple to have that time to be by themselves. And there's this sort of guilt that people feel for just being, you know, happy with their partner and figuring out things and not including their parents in their married life. There's sort of this pressure to allow everyone to be sort of enmeshed together, and that sort of keeps a wedge between the spouses from actually forming the emotional bond that they need. And it seems like a lot of people are sort of guilted into not doing so, continue to focus on their parents even after marriage. There's this other concept in Korea that I've heard psychologists talk about, and that's that there are different types of marriage. One of the type of marriage is which means parent-centered marriage. The point of your marriage is to make your parents happy. You include the parents in your marriage. Then the next type is Tanyo is kids, focus on the kids, and that's where you two relationship is not really there. You're just fully focused on the kids, and the point of your relationship is the kids. Now that one's not as bad as the parent-centered one, but still, your relationship and being on good terms in your relationship has to come before your identity in order to be healthy, because then you can actually take better care of the children that way. Obviously, for the first 3 years of a child's life, it can't be helped, so you kind of have to be more child-centered in the first 3 years, but then after that, you have to kind of learn how to get back into being, you know, your married couple self. So a lot of people, the sole reason why they are married is just the kids. So everything is poured into all the resources are poured into the kids, and that sounds great in theory. The kids tend to feel very smothered, and it really hinders them from being able to grow up and live their own lives, and they sort of start to feel responsible for the parents' happiness because the parents' happiness depends on the kids. In those type of marriages, there's no sort of excitement between the couples. There's no real emotional connection, excitement, and so it's so much easier to step out in a case like that. When your marriage is just down to only roles and duty. Okay, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I do X, Y, and Z, and that's it. It's very easy to be swept up if you meet someone else. There's a really interesting video that I watched on Chishik Inside. It's like one of my favorite Korean
Lila,
YouTube channels.
thank you so much for
where lots
stopping
of
in.
psychologists and lawyers and or professionals in whatever their fields are.
I appreciate you
to,
coming. Good
have
night.
discussions about stuff. But recently, in one of the discussions that they had, one of my favorite psychologists, he mentioned the fact that a lot of Korean marriages just tend to lack passion or feeling or anything because they're just based on the roles and the duty. So when you don't really have any excitement or passion or a good sex life in your marriage, and then you meet someone who sort of makes you feel excited, it's really hard to turn that away. You know, you're in the thrill of like meeting someone you're attracted to. You get a big rush of dopamine to your brain. It makes you feel alive, you know. When you think about it in general, like so many people just work so hard and they have to fulfill all of these societal expectations. A lot of people don't really have any joy or happiness in their life. A lot of people are depressed. So you meet someone who gives you a rush of dopamine. You feel like the new love feeling. It increases your confidence. So a lot more people have a hard time not acting on those impulses. And that's also one of the other reasons why after 50, the rates of cheating increase so much. Because in Korea, a lot of people conform to societal norms. They've lived their whole life just doing what their parents want for them. They studied what their parents wanted them to study in school. They got the job their parents wanted them to study in school. They married the person their parents wanted them to marry. They sort of start feeling like, well, what decisions have I made for myself? Like, what do I even want to do? Like, who am I? And when you couple that with the fact that Korea is a very hierarchical society, a lot of people feel like they don't get the respect that they want or deserve. So when the midlife crisis that usually happens, it's been reported that in Korea they feel it even more. And a lot of people aren't really taught how to take care of themselves mentally and emotionally. They're taught you're a good person if you set aside everything you want and just dive into helping and doing things for other people. So for a lot of people, this is like a way for them to finally do something that they want. It seems like it's sort of a distraction from reality for some people, and it sort of helps some people regain their confidence and to sort of feel loved and supported again. I'm not condoning it. I don't mean to think that I'm saying that it's a good and positive thing that they are doing that. I'm just telling you the reasons why I've heard. It's sort of similar for women after 50 as well, especially in the previous generation, where women just put their whole life into taking care of their kids. And so when their kids are finally grown and gone out of the house, especially if their kids are setting up boundaries, the moms are like, well, what do I do? Like, my identity was just based on being a mom my whole life. Like, I don't know. I gotta refine my hobbies and stuff like that. That's why in Korea, a lot of older people tend to get depressed because they don't know how to find themselves again. But it does seem like nowadays people are more open to getting therapy, so I hear a lot more stories of couples finally going to couples therapy and then figuring out how to live with each other again. So hopefully the numbers will continue to increase. I think this current generation of people are a lot more open to getting therapy and stuff like that, and getting information and resources on how to have any sort of team in their relationships and overcoming any trauma that they have. So I think this generation will be better, and the next generation will be even better, and I think everything will just continue to better. But anyway, there is lots of things that we couldn't even really begin to cover in this video. There's so much information on it, and humans are just so multifaceted. We have so many things going on in our brains that it's impossible to fully know. But what we do know is that there are some high rates of cheating here. And these were just some of the reasons that I come across and some of my thoughts and ideas and things that I found online and what I think about it. So let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Also, if you type in like cheating in Korea Reddit, there's some really juicy stories out there. If you want something to do in your own time, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have other topics that you want me to talk about, let me know down below. If you like this video, if you like to see more videos, please subscribe to my YouTube page, which is down below. So if you follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, TikTok, like me on Facebook, and I will.
Tiki talkie.
Yeah.
Let's find another
Friends.
one.
They can be a blessing or a curse, a source of motivation or the people that bring. Hi everyone, it's that time of year when my Korean skincare routine is back on sale for up to 45% off. Free international shipping is going on for 1 month. Don't miss out because remember we're not doing it again until November. Hello, friends and family. This is Megan Moon, aka Chun with me, Moon and I am back with another sit down and talk video. It's been forever. Also, we got my cameraman, Mr. Rich. So I'm just on my iPhone, so the quality might not be that good. My bad, but I'm here. So Korea can be quite depressing sometimes. I'm sure it wouldn't come to any shock to you guys because you know that Korea is the #1 most depressed nation out of all the OECD nations. And so I believe #1 with the amount of people who decide to take their own lives because of it. And I do feel like the longer and deeper you kind of get into Korean society, the more and more you start to see it. You guys know I've been in Korea since February of 2012, so it's been a little over 12 years now. And I've had so many people around me who are impacted by it. I've been impacted by it at certain times in my stay here, and I know several people whose close loved ones decided to take their own lives because of this. We're hopeless in life. And it's something that's really, really sad to see. And I usually don't talk about these sort of sad topics, but I kind of wanted to bring up some stuff because I feel like when the government kind of talks about it or there's like news reports about it, I feel like it tends to be more superficial and doesn't go into a lot of detail. They might say stuff like, housing is expensive, or it's competitive to get into school, people can't get the jobs that they want. And of course those social pressure, and of course those things are things that contribute to people feeling depressed. However, I think there's more deep things that are contributing to it. And of course, it's a multifaceted issue, and nobody can know the one most important thing that's causing it. But I do think that one of the biggest things that contributes to people feeling depressed and whatnot is just a lack of real closeness in their family relationships. I mean, because think about it, even if the cost of living is high, or if you didn't do as well on the test that you wanted, or didn't get that job promotion that you wanted, if you knew that at the end of the day you would go home, there are people who understood you, who you were emotionally close to, who would pat you on the back and say, you know what, it's okay, we'll find you another job tomorrow, who really just supported you and were positive influences in your life, you'd be much less likely to be depressed. And we know scientifically that having deep interpersonal relationships, people who you feel like understand you, who love you, who you can rely on, actually helps prevent depression and people wanting to take their own lives. I think on the surface in Korea, a lot of people, family, we gotta do this for family, do that for family. Like, there's a lot of talk about families, so you would think that families would be super close, but actually a report came out and they interviewed like tens of thousands of people across like 19 different countries, and people just ranked the things that were most important or most valuable to them in their lives. 18 out of the 19 countries all said that family, those close relationships, those close ties are the most important thing in their lives. But only one country said that material well-being was most important, and that was South Korea. And if you've been here for any amount of time, you will know that there's a lot of materialism going on. Of course, materialism kind of comes with the territory of a capitalist society, but people here feel so much pressure that they need to have this car or this expensive purse or live in this neighborhood and this and that. And there's a lot more pressure that people put on themselves and on each other to have material things. And the longer I'm here, the more I interact with people and their families and things like that, you really start to see that for a lot of the families here, they're not really emotional families so much as functional family. It's like, okay, family's supposed to meet up this often. I'm supposed to do this for you, do that for you. We gotta do this thing for our ancestors, do this and that. It's sort of like a checklist that people have and they're checking off of it, but their heart and mind is not really in it. I've seen it for a lot of people. And I've heard from a lot of Korean people too, like when they go visit their foreign friends' family and they see how the family interacts with one another, they like actually get along, like each other. And even Moo, when he first met my family, he was like, oh, your family like gets along, like everybody likes each other, like they're having a good time, like they want to be there. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of how family is. And even my mother-in-law, when my family came to Korea for our Sangyongnae, which is the meeting that both sides of the family had before marriage, and me and my family were talking, getting along, having fun, and my mom-in-law was just sitting there like, oh, you guys really have a lot of fun together. That's no wonder you seem so bored when you're hanging out with our family.
My Korean skincare routine contains 4 items. Let's start with
Green tea enzymatic powder wash. It contains green tea powder. It smells like a delectable green tea latte. Makes you want to eat it. Don't eat it though, it's way better. Which is great at exfoliating the pores. It's been clinically proven to deep clean the pores by 96.89%. It's a very gentle exfoliator, so it doesn't strip your skin of all its natural oil. It really does help to smooth out the skin texture. I am from rice.
I need a good
It contains
exfoliator too.
77.78% rice extract. It performs a protective barrier over the skin to help replenish the moisture and help your natural skin barrier to become better. And it helps to soothe the flaky, dead skin cells that you have. Freshly juiced vitamin C drops. And you guys know vitamin C is a thing I use every day. If I'm half dead and I don't feel like washing my face, I splash water with some vitamin C and end up. I think that's one of the reasons why my skin has stayed so youthful all over these years. Plus, I do visit the Korean dermatology clinic and get skin treatment sometimes, but girl, vitamin C. Overall, it helps you to enjoy a brighter and more even skin tone. The main reason why I love it also is it helps to minimize the appearance of pores. It even helps to even out any skin pigmentation issues you have or acne scars. And its antioxidant effects help to boost the production of collagen in your skin, so it's also very anti-aging as well. And lastly, I'll go in with my vitamin E. Vitamin E is very anti-aging, so it helps to reduce the appearance of fine wrinkles. It helps to provide brighter, firmer, and more hydrated skin. You can use it as a sleeping pack or a daily moisturizer. I also like that it has a really pudding texture. It jiggles.
Get your Korean skincare routine today. Don't miss out on 45% off and free international shipping. Link down below.
But it's so sad. One thing that I've seen and noted here, for example, for me, family are the people that I can talk to about anything. If I'm just, something's on my mind, I can just like, oh my God, this is this. And then I feel support and love. I feel like I can talk and share anything. It's like a stress relief to talk to my family. I feel better, uplifted, you know, if we're talking and spending time together. But in Korea, I heard for a lot of people, and I've seen for a lot of people that it's the opposite. It causes stress, kind of makes them feel down. Like it's sort of negative relationship as opposed to being positive and uplifting. And of course, not every single family is like that, but I've heard that there are so many families like that. And I was actually really curious because, you know, I have 2 kids here, and I've just seen in general in society there can be a lot of negative thinking from people, and interactions that a lot of people have tend to be a lot more negative. And so I kind of wanted to find ways to make sure that Luna and Ruben, you know, maybe don't get impacted by it. So I actually started reading some books about certain family dynamics and stuff. These are my top 3, but this book is called 가족이라는 착각. And in English, you would say the mistaken family. What you think family is, you're mistaken. You're mistaken about family. Basically, what you think is family is not. This book really goes through certain aspects of Korean culture and things in Korean society that negatively impact people. It was really interesting. I saw so many things in here. It explained a lot. So I thought I would share maybe a few reasons as to how the old traditional culture is sort of getting in the way of people actually having close emotional intimacy in their relationships today. Now remember, I'm not a professional. I'm just a gal who lives here, who's read some books, watched some lectures, experienced Korean family things for herself and talked to a lot of people over the years. Right, so I'm not a professional. It's just my opinion. It's just us gals sat here talking in front of the
Chopping it up.
camera. This is not law. This is just my opinion. I think the biggest thing that's keeping people from this generation from actually connecting with their parents is just the generational gap. Like, okay, like the previous generation of people, like my in-law age people, they were born like right after the Korean War, when Korea was like not that developed and it was like still a farming society. So the cultural difference between one generation ago and like the current generation is probably like 2 or 300 years, it feels like. So even just having a conversation, sometimes it's hard. It feels like you've gotten a time machine. And you're like talking to somebody like from a totally different era. Another thing from that era that I think is really hindering the relationship is just the fact that people need to respect elders. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have to respect elders. I think it's a good thing. You know, they should get some kind of respect. But the way that it is here is that a lot of people don't respect people. That culture is very much ranking culture. Like, I'm this ranking, so I don't have to respect you, but you have to respect me. And just one of the basic things that allows for communication and like actual emotional intimacy in a relationship is both people respecting each other. So whether you're a parent or not, you still have to respect your kids. It doesn't mean that you don't discipline them and like let them do whatever they want. But there's a certain level of respect that you have for them, like as a person that does have their own thing going for them. So a lot of the older generation, the parents don't respect boundaries. Even if you're out and you're married and you're like, hey, you know, don't show up at our house without calling or something like that. Like, they still gonna come because they don't think that they need to respect you in that way. And a lot of the younger generation were taught that you shouldn't speak up to old people, even if they're doing something that you don't like. So a lot of people are too afraid to sort of assert themselves and create that boundary. And a lot of the parents can get very vocal and like really angry if you do try and assert some sort of boundary with them. And because of that, a lot of people have said, you know, when they were young, you know, if they had things that were bothering them or they were worried about and they went to their parents to talk to them about, they didn't really receive any sort of compassion or encouragement. They sort of received negative feedback from their parents. And a lot of people, if they speak up about something that their parents are doing that make them feel uncomfortable, etc., then the parents will sort of guilt trip them by saying, hey, you know, we raised you, you need to respect us. So a lot of people feel like by even having their own opinion outside of their parents' opinion that they're being a bad son or daughter. So they sort of learn to just keep quiet, not say anything, to keep their emotions inside. Because there are some parents who will get angry anytime you try and share, you know, how you feel about something, etc. And I was talking to Moon about this, and then actually there is this person, his name is
guys, my phone is about to die.
Videos talking about psychology online, and he made a video and it was like charaja versus chirgita. And he was just talking about like the differences between like how Koreans and like certain Western people think in certain situations. But one of the situations that he brought up was like he was watching a movie and he was like this American kid, I guess. And this like American kid like fell and hurt himself or something. And so the mom came over and was like, oh my God, you know, are you okay? I hope that you're okay. And it's like, but how Korean moms do, like just kind of like get mad and sort of like, well, you shouldn't be over there, like that sort of thing. That sort of compassion can cause a lot of grief.
Sound like Jamaican parents.
And when bad things do happen to them, I feel like it tends to impact them more. Because one of the things that he said in the video was, whenever you're young, when something bad happens, however your closest people reacted. So if your parents reacted, it's like, okay, are you okay? You know, everything's okay. And then when bad things happen, that tends to be the attitude that you have. You're like, okay, well, let's say I got in a car accident. At least I had my life, right? So that's something. Feels like if you grew up in a way where something bad happens to you, people say negative things to you, then as an adult, when bad things happen, you tend to receive it more negatively.
Yeah.
That aspect of parenting, where a lot of parents tend to react negatively when things happen, puts people in positions where they're adults and they can't follow their goals, or they don't get everything that they want, that they tend to react more negatively, and it tends to shift their whole world a lot more. And another thing that really causes a lot of issues for people when they grow up is comparing their kid to the neighbor's kid to everyone else's kid. Every psychology book talks about, and in this book I really like, it's called Omasu. It's like a class, or mom's class. It's really by he's a monk, but he wrote a really good book about mothers as well. He's not married, don't have no kids. It's actually really good because he did study psychology. But in this book, he talks about comparing two, and he talks about how you know, a good mother's heart is you don't compare your kids to other people. You accept their kids for how you are. Of course, you teach them and help them to go on their path in life. But comparing them and having that standard of other people around you really impacts the kids. Like self-esteem actually has negative impact on them instead of positive. Like the elders always compare kids. Like so-and-so's neighbor's kid is doing this. Why aren't you doing that? And this grandkid can walk already. Why can't your kid walk already? Like it's a lot of like comparing people, and it's stressful for me sometimes. And I'm not even like a kid. Like I'm an adult, and I'm like, wow, guys, like, why are we comparing people like this and like talking shit about somebody because they can't do something like someone else can? But it's such a huge comparing culture, and I think that's why in society people continue to compare each other to other people. It's typically always on the negative end, right? Like if you do something better than the neighbor, the parents won't say to you, oh, you can do better than the neighbor did. It's always one of the things that you can't do. So a lot of people feel a lot of self-conscious about the things that they can't do. So I think they want to get out and do better than the next man so that they can receive some sort of positive praise. The next thing that really hinders closeness in the family units is this notion called kyodo. So that is you having to pay back your parents for raising you. And it was apparently a big thing, like in the previous generation. They like hounded it into the people of this generation now's skulls. They didn't need to pay their parents back for raising them. And the things that they require for you to pay them back.
You didn't ask to be in this world.
In adulthood.
Yet,
so a lot of people
you have to
so
pay your parents
they
back.
want to do their own thing or have a job that their parents don't want. So they're like, hey, I really want to do what I say. You belong to me. Also, they expect to be repaid with having a certain amount of money sent to them every month. And some parents are very vocal. They will say how much money they need to send. Like, this, how much money you have to send me every month. And it just feels very transactional. They also require, some parents also require that you go see them every certain interval. I've heard stories of parents that require that even after their kids get married, that they go visit them every week. We both work, like we're tired every weekend, like we don't go there. Those are the really like crazy ones. And I'm like, wow, that is a lot. But there are some parents who can be very demanding, I heard. Especially the ones that require calls. Like there are some parents that require like a couple calls a week. And if you don't call them, then they'll complain. And it's a big issue for certain people in marriage because after marriage, that sort of falls on the wife. And so like the mother-in-law will require that the wife call every once in a while, and then if not, like she can get upset. But it's sort of this thing where the older generation is just anxious. It's like, okay, well my kid is married now, so they can leave and like not call me ever again. So they constantly need confirmation that you still respect me and that you're still here. That is a very real thing. That causes a lot of stress in people's marriage. But you have to also think about what it does to kids. Like if you're a kid and you grow up hearing that your parents raised you really fast, that's a huge burden. You can't get back someone who was alive. One of the things that in Sydney, the mom says, like online, he says all the time, is like, you don't pay back your parents for raising you.
How do you pay back someone for taking care of
pay
you?
that back to the next generation.
Yeah,
It's like one
I'm
of those
gonna
things
take a
that's
break
painful.
soon because
You
I
were raised, so then you
have to
raise
shower and
another
get ready for
generation.
bed.
Everything is about keeping the life going. But if you grow up feeling like you don't have unconditional love from your parents and you being there, something that needs to be paid back, and that causes a tremendous impact on self-esteem, and it causes a lot of people
In a few minutes, so
a lot of people talk about that is talked about.
I'll
Actually,
definitely finish this bag
and that I've been seeing a
tomorrow.
lot online these days is like the previous generation's sort of marriage relationship is not that good. So a lot of people were just kind of in the marriage because they had kids, but they would actually verbalize that and say that to their kids, like, hey, you know, I'm in this marriage with your dad. I have to be with your dad because of you. Okay? So they grow up just feeling guilty for even just existing. A lot of people. And so even though this generation knows that that's not good or healthy, when you grow up feeling guilty about just existing and you sort of feel pushed to think that you owe your life to your parents in that sense. Obviously, if it wasn't for your parents, you wouldn't be here. But that you need to pay back them for raising you, like that's a very big burden to bear, especially because we're no longer a farming society. The cost of living and stuff is expensive. So So to think that you have that burden of having to send your parents money every month, etc., is very difficult. There's this one, you know how on YouTube, like you have a channel that you see, but you haven't actually subscribed to. But you see a lot of their videos and you might watch them all the way through, but you just don't subscribe because YouTube recommends it to you anyway. So there's a YouTuber like that, a Korean guy who talks about finances, and then people call in. So this one man called in and was like, in order to meet my parents, the amount of money they say I should send them every month, like I'm living like a pauper. Right, like I'm living in this little one room. I'm just eating like ramen, and so the finance guy like had to talk them through it and be like, okay, I know this is what your parents expect, but we have to prepare for our old age. Young people know what their parents are doing, expecting their kids to take care of them in young age. That they don't want their kids to have the burden of having to take care of them in old age, so they're trying to save up money for their future. But if you're trying to save up money for your future, when the cost of living is high, but then also you have to send money to your parents, that causes a lot of stress. So a lot of people get stressed out about not having jobs that pay a super lot of money because they feel like they can't prepare for their future and take care of their kids while also, sending money to their parents. So because of that, a lot of people really like the relationship they have with their parents is just sort of functional and transactional and transactional. Like, okay, I have to meet them every so often. I have to send them X amount of money. I have to see them on the holidays. I have to call them X amount. But then actually, a lot of people's heart is not really there. They don't really like being around them because they feel anxious and feel you can't really have a conversation with them, right? And there's a lot of like trauma and hurt that a lot of people have like from their parents, but they feel like they're a bad son or a bad daughter, if they don't do the things that their parents ask of them. And I think that puts so much stress on people. That on top of how competitive society is, I think is just it's enough to drive you over the edge. So as a result of that, like when you were small and people didn't really give you compassion, a lot of people say that in their friendships, when you do want to open up to certain friends, it can be hard also because some people don't really want to hear that. And I've actually experienced that, like in Korea, like meeting people and then going to go talk to them, like sharing some like deep down thing inside. I've had someone be like, I don't want to hear your stuff. I got my own stuff. And then I've heard like Korean people complain about it and other foreign people as well. But when you're already overloaded with like mental stuff and you feel like you have nobody to talk to, and then someone throws their stuff on you, obviously it's going to be hard for you to accept that. Just amongst friends, I heard that it's really hard to find people that you can actually talk with and have a relationship with on a deep level. And I've experienced that myself, like making friends. So if you do find a good friend here and you both can talk about everything and comfort one another and understand each other, hold on to them, okay? Because a lot of friendships here I've seen are also very functional. It's like a checklist, right? Okay, you make X amount of money, you have this, you have that. Okay, we can hang out. It's the vibe that I get. Of course, every single person is not like that, but there's a lot of that going on. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about that I think is really messing up relationships, especially between adult children. A lot of parents seem to have separation anxiety with their parents, where their kids grow up and them like being independent and leaving their house, especially the moms. In the previous generation, the marriage, as we discussed already, the marriages weren't actually that good. So a lot of the moms sort of latch onto their sons like husbands. Like emotionally, they're relying on their son like a husband.
It's just the mentality.
Is married, they get very anxious, some of them. So without realizing it, they actually do things to keep their kids from growing up. So as a result, when they're adults, they don't really know how to handle life by themselves, but their parents are very anxious that they're like an adult and they're like leaving them now, especially the moms. And so that's why they get really like obsessed sometimes, like when their kids leave, they're just calling like every day and like, what did you eat? Did you do this? Did you do your laundry? You need me to get you some side dishes? You need some kimchi? You need this? You need that? It's like it can be very obsessive. That's sort of how you get that notion of like crazy mother-in-law. It comes from that whole, me and my husband aren't like super duper close. And so like I've sort of bonded onto my son. He's my son husband. And so they get very, very clingy when he goes off and gets married. Oh my God, there's some crazy stories that I heard on YouTube. We should have a video where I just tell you the craziest mom-in-law stories that people have shared on YouTube or have been on TV. Or like the people call it and like come to me and share their stories. I'm just like, how do people live like this? But anyway, back on top. When you're an adult and your parents are sort of calling you,
I forgot the stretches. I can't sew on top of
it. A lot of
it.
people are very stressed when their mom is calling them all the time.
I used to watch that 90 Day Fiance, but I didn't really watch for too long. I couldn't deal with it. The last one I watched, I can't remember what his name was, but he had this woman from Trinidad.
Whenever you're doing something,
He was, she was like,
there's this overarching feeling that they just don't trust that you can do
she
anything
was,
by yourself.
I can't remember what her background was, but she was very materialistic in a way. Jalal, I think was his name. I can't remember her name. Jalal, and I can't remember her name. Bilal or Jalal, one of them. He's a black guy. Anyway, he picked her up from the airport immediately. He took her to his childhood home, which was a broke down house, to test her to see if she after his money or how she would react if he lived in that house. He was just and then he tried to put her out on the highway. He tried to put her out on the busy highway, like she was playing with him, like touching his head or something like that in the car, and he keep telling us stop or whatever. And she did it jokingly, like continuing, because she played around. And he told her she need to get out the car. I'm like, what?
Anyway, I ran along. Make sure you don't miss out on my Korean skincare sale. There's only a few
Like,
days left.
sir.
All the information will be down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video and see more videos, please subscribe to my YouTube page down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Zone. You said no more. Follow me on TikTok because I started making really fun TikToks. And I will see ya.
So y'all, TikTok will be gone on the 19th of January. Well,
in Korea,
the app will still be there, but it won't be updated.
Lost, rather, would be my patience.
So only way you guys will get to see me is if you go on here.
Hello, friends and family. This is Megan Moon, aka Charlotte Mikusadam. And welcome back to the studio for another talking video. So over the years, I've made
Your
a couple
favorite
videos about
Korean
habits that I
person?
realized that I picked up since having been in Korea for so long, and I realized that there are so many more habits that I've picked up from living in Korea. And if you've been in Korea for a long time, maybe you picked up these habits too.
Alright, y'all, I'm definitely gonna take this break now.
With my husband and the babies going to Daegu.
I'm gonna take a shower and get ready for bed, and I'll come back tomorrow. I'm not doing anything to this. I'm just gonna leave it like I always do. So when I come back, we picked up where we leave off. His mother felt like she was entitled to, yes, yes, you remember that one? I cannot remember her name. And she was so nice. So, you know, she was really nice. She was a little superficial for me though, but she was a nice girl. Like, clearly she knows what she wants in life, out of life, and her husband and stuff, but he was just and his mother was like, but that was the last 90 Day I ever watched. That was the last I ever watched. Anywho, my lovelies, thank you so much for giving me your time. We've been here 176 minutes. I don't know how much that translates to. It's over 2 hours, I'm sure. Almost 3 hours. I don't know what that translates to. I can't do quick math in my head. But thank you so much always for supporting, giving me your likes. I appreciate it. It helps people to find my channel, to see when I'm streaming, when I'm live, or just to watch some of my contents that I have, older contents. But anyway, tomorrow I'll come back on 2 times. I'll come back on once in the afternoon and once in the evening, like 7. So look out for when I pop up, and I'll see you then. Denise, my darling, thank you so much for joining me this whole entire time. You put in some hours. Really? So it's a real thing. Girl. Wow. Yeah, no. He was awful. I need to see your bunnies. I really do. So I gotta shoot you a TikTok before I go to sleep. Hopefully I don't forget. But I think you should be able to find my email on my TikTok. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's Sewn Seamlessly at iCloud.com. Sewn Seamlessly is on my socials, but just iCloud.com. Yeah, girl. So thank you so much for being here always. And I'm trying to get all my TikTok people here because no more TikTok in 2025. Ooh, how's that gonna be? Wow. All right, y'all. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. Mwah. Bye. Oh, let me take this down and turn it off. I have one little light leave. At least it lasted that long. All right. Bye. See you guys tomorrow.